Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today I suggested to my friend that she should shave. Now she won't talk to me. I'm 29, female. My friend, let's call her Emily, she's 32, is an amazing person. She's fun, adventurous, intelligent, super active, a great cook, outgoing, and just a great girl to be around. A few years ago, she decided not to shave anymore. Legs, armpits, other areas, out of protest to the system, resulting in her having very long dark hair everywhere. A few days ago, we were having a beer, and she told me how sad her dating life was, that she kept meeting guys and having very fun dates, but never got a call back, or when she tried asking for a second or third date, got rejected in a very generic manner. Now after telling her, "You're so gorgeous and wonderful, the right man will come along, don't worry," multiple times, I decided to go out on a limb and said something along the lines of, "I know this is a very superficial thing to say, but do you think it might help a little if you would shave?" She was taken aback and told me she was disappointed I would suggest she change her appearance for them, and that I was only adding to her suppression. I immediately apologized, but the evening was pretty much ruined. I texted her the next day, apologizing again for hurting her feelings, but she hasn't replied. I really did not want to hurt her feelings, but I also don't quite see how my comment was that bad, so I'm not sure how to phrase my apology. So I decided to take it here and ask people how big of a jerk I am. She has the right to not shave, and the guys she dates have the right to not like it. People are attracted to what they're attracted to. That's just reality. If she wants a man who doesn't mind this, that will be a much smaller percentage of the male dating pool, and it will be more difficult for her to find a partner. If she was asking for your advice and you were trying to help her, then not the jerk. Especially because you're likely right, and the hair is the reason that the men are not staying. I think it's silly that she's mad at you just for stating the obvious truth. Edit. After thinking about this more, I'm thinking that yes, the hair is probably the main issue, but the fact that she has it probably really is a symptom of her personality and outlook on life and general opinions, and those things are probably the even bigger reasons the guys aren't sticking around. You're the jerk. Not shaving is a value statement. She's looking for a partner in life that has the same values. By telling her to shave, you are telling her to change her values just to get a man. Instead of saying, "Don't worry, you'll find the right man," why not say, "It's better that these wrong men are screened out than to be with one of them that doesn't value the same things you do." Now that would be miserable compromising your values. Being single is not the end of the world. You're the jerk. I also refuse to shave and have dealt with so many jerks who are not okay with it. If he can have long hair under his arms, then why can't I? It's obviously just not fair, and people like your friend and I are brave enough to challenge the status quo. You're a total jerk for telling her to change who she is for them, and you are part of what's wrong with modern society. Not the jerk. Your friend is obviously one of those people who can't accept reality and gets mad when confronted with it. She sounds really toxic, bitter, and hostile. Life tip: don't keep people like this in your life. Their problems are never going to be solved, and they will always take it out on the people who are trying to help them. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for weaponizing my sister's poverty during a family dinner? Background: I've always been ambitious and started a bakery pretty young. I was able to do it through a family loan, which I'm grateful for, and a lot of grit and insane hours. The dedication led me to miss out on a lot of things, and while I'm incredibly proud to have built something that's turned into a super popular spot in my neighborhood, I've definitely missed out on a few things. One of which is that I'm 35 and single and childless. Although I have no regrets, I do want to find love. This is a topic of frequent discussion during family dinners with my parents and sister. It's not an unwelcome discussion, and my parents don't nag. They just ask normal things like, "How was that coffee date last week?" Or, "Did you like so-and-so?" And if things don't work out, they don't say anything much. Normally, it's not a sad discussion, but this week I was sharing a bigger than normal disappointment in a recent failed date. We had gone out a few times, and I thought it would turn into something, but our schedules were just incompatible. After hearing this, my sister piped up and said she wasn't surprised because I had a negative and unfeminine aura that turns away men. My parents tried to shut her up, but she kept going on and on about how men would find my energy aggressive because I set too many boundaries. She ended with saying that I should try manifesting a positive love story, and that by going into relationships with negativity, I was manifesting failure. I was honestly so mad at this point that I just blurted out, "Well, maybe if you manifested a job, you wouldn't be fighting with Tom," her kid's father, over child support payments. She has 2 kids with Tom, split 50-50 custody, and she tries to live off her child support payments by staying with my parents. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with that, except she always complains about not having nice things, like she wants a Chanel bag and was jealous her friend got one for her anniversary. And she refuses to work. My dad offered her an admin job at his company, but she hated sitting for so long. She immediately started crying at the table, causing us to cut dinner short. My parents are trying to not take sides, but have recently asked me to apologize because my sister has been making social media posts about me weaponizing her poverty and being a bully. By the way, to call herself poor is honestly a slap in the face to people who are actually poor. She lives in a gated community in my parents' home. She refuses to come to my mom's birthday party next week if I don't say sorry. I personally feel like she deserved it, but I can tell my mom's upset. By the way, the boundaries my sister says that result in me manifesting negativity are things like me turning down a date 4th of July weekend because I own a bakery and it's a huge weekend for my business, requiring me to be all hands on deck pumping out pies and pastries. Not the jerk. Your sister seems jealous. I'd speculate because you exerted yourself to make your business successful and consequently are able to be financially independent, whereas she is wholly financially reliant on your parents and her ex. You didn't weaponize her poverty, you observed it. Are there gentler ways to point out that she isn't qualified to be giving you life advice? Yes, but given that her criticism of you was neither requested nor constructive, she has no right to expect you to be protective of her feelings in that moment. I don't think you owe her an apology. If someone uses the word manifest, I automatically think they're the jerk. Not the jerk. I would like to suggest you think about one thing though. You write that she has 2 kids with Tom, split 50-50 custody, and tries to live off her child support payments by staying with your parents. Honestly, there is nothing wrong with that. Respectfully, yes, there is something wrong with that. Child support is meant to support the kids, not the ex. Your sister is being unfair to the kids if she's using their money to support her own needs. She needs to get a job. You know, as grown-ups do. I'm a full-time government worker and so is my spouse. We go to the food bank and we can absolutely not afford to have any kids. We share a tiny, overpriced studio apartment to be in the area where we can get job experience for our resumes. Forget a Chanel bag. I stress about car insurance. Yes, you're right. Your sister calling herself poor is a total slap in the face to people like myself. Not the jerk. You need to get on her social media and reply that since she refuses to work at all because she hates sitting for so long and that she can go forget herself. Your parents are awful for even asking you to apologize. They're enabling her and they aren't doing her any favors in the long run. What happens when they pass on and can't support her? Your parents need to be okay with her not coming to stuff and to appear unbothered or this emotional blackmail will continue. Do not apologize to her. Am I overreacting breaking up with my boyfriend because of his mom? My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years long distance. We met while we were both on vacation. In that time, I've met his family, but only through Zoom. We couldn't meet in person due to the intensive degree program I was doing. So in the last 2 years, my boyfriend has been traveling to see me every 2 months. Now that I'm done with my program, I can pretty much work anywhere, and since I work from home, I thought I would move into my own place in the city my boyfriend lives in and continue to explore our relationship. I went to look at apartments and then went to meet his family in person for the first time and have dinner. Everything was going well. I met his parents, his brothers, and their spouses. His mom was very pleasant until dinner started. His oldest brother's wife had made an appetizer and served it. It was really good, but their mom put the appetizer in her mouth, made a noise, and then made it seem like she had to force herself to eat it. She said something like, "That's a different taste," and made a disgusted face. There was nothing wrong with the appetizer. She then went to the kitchen and came out with the same appetizer and said, "It's good I made the same one just in case." I expected the daughter-in-law to say something, but she just kept quiet. No one said a word, and the conversations continued like it was normal. The mom, with the daughter-in-law and the other spouses, then helped take away our plates that still had the first appetizer on them, served hers on new plates, and told us all to eat. It was the same appetizer. There was no difference. In fact, I preferred the daughter-in-law's because hers had more vanilla. I was astounded that she did this. Dinner continued, and it was all made by the mom. She kept asking how the food was and made passive-aggressive comments about certain dishes that were made before by the other daughter-in-laws. I didn't say anything because I was shocked, but after we left dinner, I asked my boyfriend what happened. He said his mom is really passionate about her cooking and doesn't like anyone to outdo her. I said, "So this happens at every family dinner?" And he said yes, If someone had made a dish before or they make one at dinner, his mom tries to outdo them. He said his brother's wives don't take it personally because they know how she is and that it's really coming from a place of love. I'm sorry, but what I saw is not from a place of love, and the daughter-in-law seemed like she was going to cry. My boyfriend finally said she's just territorial about her cooking, and other than that, she's very normal. I finally asked him, when did this behavior start? And he said when his eldest brother first brought a serious girlfriend home. His eldest brother is 8 years older than him, so I asked from the time they were dating up to now, did all your brother's partners go through this? And he said yes. I said, do you think your mom's behavior is bad? And he got a little offended and said, no, I just think she's passionate about making good food. I've been thinking on it, replaying the dinner and comments over and over in my head, and there's no way I can sign myself up for this kind of life. My boyfriend and I are starting to talk about marriage and the future and kids, and I'm very nervous now. His brother's wives have endured this mistreatment over their cooking since the start of their relationships with their spouse's mother, and no one says a thing. Not them, not their husbands, not his dad, and not my boyfriend. How is this okay? How can I sign up for this level of insult every time there's a family dinner? If my boyfriend and I reach that stage, can I never cook anything? Will she always try to upstage me? Will she make comments about my cooking? I don't know if I can set myself up to walk into a toxic family situation like this. I'd rather leave. I honestly am really considering breaking up with him because of this. Edit. I made this post to vent. I didn't want to tell my sisters or my BFF about this because this could be an issue I get over with my boyfriend, but family doesn't forget. Finding just no mother-in-law doesn't help. Anyway, I asked my boyfriend if he could reach out to his brother's wives and ask if I could contact them for lunch. I didn't want to overstep. If they agree to this lunch, I'm writing down a few questions I'm going to ask. After lunch, I plan to have a talk with my boyfriend, and then I'll go from there. For the people asking why I'm willing to throw away a relationship where my boyfriend clearly has put in a lot of effort to see and be with me, the answer is that I'm thinking about the rest of my life here. I'm in my early 20s, and if we get married and have kids, if his mom is actually going to be like this, or worse, that's decades of drama and passive aggressiveness I would rather not deal with or have instilled in my future kids. I'm not doing that. If it's a choice between being with him and dealing with what I saw at dinner on a regular basis or being alone, I choose being alone. I'm going to communicate. That's one thing I should have done immediately. I'm going to openly express how I feel at every step and tell him why I'm doing it. I'll go from there based on what I can see to make a decision. Your biggest problem is that your boyfriend doesn't see anything wrong with her behavior. You're getting a taste of how she'll treat you, and rest assured he won't do anything about it. They've all enabled her rude behavior. She's a bully. Don't sign up for this. You'll be fighting a losing battle, trying to get him to stand up for you. And if you stand up for yourself, he'll blame you for causing problems in the family. You'll be the villain. End it now. She can't make comments about anyone's cooking if they refuse to cook. I don't understand why any of them are still trying to cook anything. That's just nuts. It's like the saying goes, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I would simply not do it. If it's a family get-together, I'd just let mother-in-law cook everything and I'd sit on my butt and have a nice glass of wine while she's working in the kitchen. I would not put myself in any kind of situation where I'd be expected to cook. No hosting dinners at my own house if mother-in-law is going to be there. If I wanted to host the in-laws, I'd take them to a restaurant. I would simply not ever cook if she was going to be eating the food. But to answer your question, I would not be anxious to sign myself up for a toxic bunch of in-laws either. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. And the fact that your boyfriend defends his mother's behavior, red flag. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for breaking up with her boyfriend over this or not? Please let us know. If you love and respect your partner, you cannot allow your family members to treat them like this. If only more people could understand that and grow a spine. Am I the jerk for refusing to dine out with my husband's best friend? My husband has a best friend named John that he's known since college. I really like John, but it's worth mentioning that John grew up very differently from both me and my husband, and that he comes from a wealthy family who supported him financially until he graduated from college and got his first job working for a major bank. He doesn't know what it's like to be poor or work a lower-paying service job and have to make ends meet because he never had to. I don't think it makes him a bad person, just out of touch with reality. This leads me to this. One thing about John is that I absolutely hate going out to eat with him. He's so rude to servers and will often find reasons to not tip them. He has a habit of trying to order off menu or adding so many modifications to a dish that it's no longer recognizable and will get angry if it's even a little bit wrong. He doesn't have any allergies or intolerances. Dining with him can be embarrassing and mentally exhausting. Last night was the last straw for me. The three of us and another couple decided to try a newer restaurant in our city. After being seated, John seemed to be on his best behavior. No complicated drinks or food orders. In fact, he got a glass of wine and only made 2 modifications to his entree. The only negative was that our server seemed to be in the weeds because of how busy the restaurant was, but she was pleasant and you could tell she was trying her best to keep us happy, which is all that should matter. John got upset because she wasn't refilling his water as soon as he finished it. His second glass of wine took a while and our entrees took about half an hour to get out. All the while, he's talking about how this was going to be reflected on his tip. I was annoyed. And then when our entrees did come out, one of his mods didn't come out right and he went ballistic on the server, started calling her names, etc. I've never seen him get that angry with his server before. Usually he's just passive-aggressive. In response, I lost it on him and told him that he was overreacting to such a small slight and that it probably wasn't even her fault. If he had such an issue, then he needed to speak to a manager and not yell at her about it. His meal was fixed soon after, and the rest of the night went on smoothly. Of course, John left no tip, so I doubled mine to make up for it. In the parking lot, I told him that I would never go out to eat with him again if he was going to continue to act so entitled to restaurant workers. I added that he needed to humble himself and not act like he's above anyone who doesn't work a white-collar job, because not all of us were born into money and left without saying goodbye. On the car ride home, my husband told me my comments to John were inappropriate and that I was a jerk to him because he had every right to be mad. I replied that I had the right to not want to eat with people who behave like he does because it's exhausting. Good for you. You stood up for her when she likely would have lost her job if she had stood up for herself. As for your husband, he thinks John had the right to treat the server like dirt and go ballistic on her? He's wrong. And please don't blame John's privilege for his terrible behavior. Blame John, pure and simple. The issue is John's character, not his wealth. There are plenty of people from all walks of life who treat people in service jobs respectfully, and unfortunately a few who don't. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Forget your husband. When someone like that is part of your dinner party and it impacts your experience, they brought you into their tantrum. You can tell the character of a person by how they treat servers and how they hold money over someone's head. Maybe your husband felt too seen since he seems to be fine with the belittling going on. Not the jerk, but you gotta wonder about your husband who thinks John's behavior is okay. If you do go out to eat again, let your husband know that for every time John is rude to the waitstaff, you expect hubby to pony up an additional percentage to the tip and keep a tally. Maybe then he'll take notice. Am I the jerk for telling my friend her baby is the reason no one wants her around? I'm female, 24. My friend Anna, who's also 24, had a baby around 6 months ago. Our friend group is otherwise childless. All of us used to hang out a lot before the baby was born. Baby changed dynamics because Anna wanted to bring the baby everywhere with her as it's a baby. We tried to plan things around baby to include Anna, but it always ended up badly. We shouldn't drink because Anna can't drink. We shouldn't be loud because baby needs to sleep. Icing on the cake is her baby is extremely fussy and cries all the time. It was just a downer for the rest of us, so we started hanging out without Anna and her baby. Last weekend, all of us went on a staycation. We had a great time and posted photos and videos on Instagram. Anna saw these and called me to ask why I didn't invite her. I tried telling her it was a last-minute plan and we could only find a child-free resort so as to not hurt her feelings. She called my bluff, sending me pics some random family had posted with their kids at the resort. She kept forcing me, and I told her we did not want to hang out with her baby. She asked, how can I say that about her baby? I asked her to leave it at that, but she wouldn't. I finally told her it's a baby, and we are all young. We don't want to live our life around a baby she chose to have, that we get to do adult stuff and party all we want to. Her baby is the only reason she wasn't invited. If she left baby at home, she can come too. She got upset and called me a jerk. She also sent a text in the group chat saying she's disappointed in all of us for excluding her because she's a mom. Half our friend group thinks I should not have told her the real reason and they're mad at me. The other half thinks she's unreasonable. Am I the jerk for telling her the truth? She refuses to leave the baby with her boyfriend or babysitter. Even when we say an event is for adults, like a dinner we had a few weeks ago, she still brought her baby. Baby cried throughout the night, earning us glares, and we had to leave early. Not the jerk. You tried to let her down easy and she kept on asking. Her life is different and she probably just needs to find a different group of friends, one that more closely aligns with her interests. Not the jerk. You're not excluding her because she's a mom. You're excluding her because she makes being a mom everyone else's problem. She won't leave the baby home. Does it have a father present, grandparents, anyone who can watch it for a few hours? She expects you to cater to her needs. You shouldn't have to not drink just because she can't. It sounds like she doesn't remove the baby from the situation when it's fussy, so you all have to deal with it. You have every right to want to be young and act like it. She needs to accept that having a baby has changed things for her, but that doesn't mean everyone else has to change everything to accommodate that. My fiance is reconsidering our marriage after visiting my home country. To start, I come from a small island in the Caribbean, part of the US. I moved to the US 5 years ago just after graduating university and landed a job here. Since day one, my fiance has been romanticizing what it's like to live in a tropical paradise, my country. I love my country and I was raised there, but it's not even close to a paradise. Of course it has its charm, but not close to that level. Well, we were planning our honeymoon and she wants to stay there for 2 weeks and travel around the island. I'm not fond of that idea because I've seen it all and she wants to visit not safe areas around the island. Her main part of attraction is a place that's in a huge music video, but it's not a safe place for tourists. So I said, fine, let's just do a quick visit before our wedding so we can see what's going on. She immediately accepted, and 1 month later we traveled to my home country. She wasn't impressed, but I kept my mouth shut. We arrived at this place, and I already know today that it's a hot day to be there. I tried to convince her, but she insists on going in. The locals are eyeing us, and my mind is screaming we shouldn't be there. Not even 3 feet in, and 2 guys confronted us. She started talking, and her broken Spanish just made things even worse. I tried to calm down the situation, and we left soon after. I kept my mouth shut, even though I just wanted to tell her, I told you so, because this was stupid from the start. On our way back home, she didn't say a word, even after I tried to start a conversation. Well, today, 1 week after we arrived, she left her ring at the nightstand with a note telling me she needs some time. I fear this might be the end of it all. She never does this sort of thing. Update: she called off the engagement. I don't know what to do now. Probably just drink while I play some Halo with the boys before crying myself to sleep. See ya. Let her go. It looks like she was in love with the romanticized idea of having the potential to live in a tropical island. Then her idea busted. If she was really loving you, this experience would not affect the personal relationship with you. I'm 32, male. My girlfriend, who's 31, doesn't want me as her wedding date. Backstory: my girlfriend and I went out for the first time about 10 months ago. I hadn't realized then, but she had just gotten out of a long and serious relationship basically without any warning. She was shocked, hurting, confused, and I think just looking for a fun casual time. I suppose we hit it off way better than expected and started seeing each other pretty consistently. She was clear she wasn't ready to jump into anything too quickly, but soon enough we were essentially boyfriend-girlfriend. Going out 1 to 2 times a week, texting every single day, and as far as I know, not seeing other people. Around the holidays, I met her family, and although we really hit it off, I think it freaked her out a bit. She continued to text daily, but barely. She didn't want to come over and made excuses to not go out. After a month, we saw each other finally, and things went back to the way they were. In May, a similar thing happened, and we actually stopped talking for a week. After that week, she reached out, we talked and went out. While out to dinner, she and I both acknowledged how hard it was to not talk to each other, how we felt, and she asked me for us to be official. I felt the same way and was elated to say yes. Since being official, she met my family. I've spent some more time with hers. We did 2 mini trips together, and I even joined her family vacation for a few days. The family loves me, and her little sister is getting married in about a month. It's my impression that the sister and her fiance, who also loves me, wanted me at the wedding, and basically said things to me assuming I was going. I know it can be a pain to invite guests later in the game, so it really means a lot. The issue is that my girlfriend hasn't invited me, and has basically told me she doesn't really know if she wants me there. My girlfriend is the maid of honor, and she and her sister are absolute best friends. I guess she feels like, with it not only being her sister, but also her best friend, there's a lot of pressure on her and us about having me there. She doesn't want the pictures and memories for the rest of her life to feature one guy she was dating at the time. By the time of the wedding, we'll have basically been seeing each other for a year, though maybe only made it official for 4 to 5 months. I don't feel like I'm just some guy and can't help but feel offended. I know this probably has to do with her last relationship ending abruptly and without warning. I think she's still learning how to trust again, but at the same time, it feels like she's telling me we aren't fully going to make it, and if she chooses to not have me there, it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I've tried to ask a little about it a few times, but she honestly gets so worked up and stressed out when it comes to this wedding that I don't want to mention it to her anymore. At this point, I haven't been officially told anything either way, invited or not. At what point should a significant other be invited as a date? Update. The responses from everyone seem to be pretty split down the middle. Half of you saw this as a huge red flag and suggested I end everything, while the other half thought it was okay and the best thing I could do for my girlfriend was to just support her. Being that everything else in our relationship seemed to be going so well, I wasn't going to end things over this. My next decision was to also not approach the subject again. She had gotten so stressed out the last time that I didn't see how bringing it up again could help the situation. If she was still teetering on what to do, I wanted to let her make the decision on her own, not sway her based on what I wanted. People suggested I find a way to enjoy the weekend on my own or with friends. Well, what do you know? There's a big barbecue festival in the city my friend lives in. Everyone knows the best way to distract a man with swirling thoughts is through meat. Well, yesterday that all changed because she asked me to go as her date. She apologized for being so late about it, but she described going through what a lot of you had written. She's helping a lot with this wedding and is under an enormous amount of stress. She wasn't sure about bringing me out of fear that it would be another thing she would have on her mind. Where she wants all her focus on is her sister. She says the way I've been supporting her lately made her realize she won't need to worry about me. Yes, I probably won't even get to talk to her until dinner. No, I won't know too many people since all of her family I'm close with will be in the wedding parties. However, I'm important to her and she wants me there with her regardless. She apologized for the last conversation, making it sound like I was just some guy that she was worried about having in pictures. She argued jokingly that it wasn't exactly how she said it, but neither of us can remember the exact verbiage anyway. She was also really appreciative that I haven't been pressuring or nagging her about this and let her come to her own decision. The fact that I gave her space on the subject, yet continued to support her, was what made her realize how much she wanted me there. I miss my annoying wife. I've been married to my wife for over 4 years now. From the point we were dating until 3 months ago, she was very annoying. She would prank me by scaring me. She would put her cold hands and feet on my shirt while we were laying down. She would scream my name in a very panicked way just to follow with, "I love you." She would take the cap out of my tires just so I wouldn't have air in them and couldn't use the car, just on the weekends when I didn't need… Man, she was annoying, wasn't she? Dang. So it wouldn't be a problem, but it was annoying. She would make me a small cup of coffee with salt in it, and the list goes on. But I didn't mind because I loved her so much. 3 months ago, things took a turn. She lost her mom unexpectedly and is understandably very sad. Her mom was such a sweet woman who raised my wife alone since her father left when he found out he would be a father. She was a model to my wife, her hero. She taught my wife how to be a woman. She taught her how to love. She helped my wife through her heartbreak. She was overall my wife's most important person in her life. After the loss of her mother, my wife is the most calm woman I've ever known. She doesn't do anything annoying anymore. She doesn't make my salted coffee anymore. She doesn't scream my name anymore. She doesn't scare me anymore. She doesn't let the air out of my tires anymore. And I miss it very much. It was very annoying, but at least I knew she was happy. She had the most beautiful smile, and now it's gone. She isn't even crying anymore. She just lays in bed and cuddles with me like most of the day. She doesn't smile anymore, and I miss her being happy. I miss her smile after I would drink her salted cup of coffee, which I of course knew it was coffee with salt, but it was such a small price for seeing her smile. I just miss my annoying wife. Update. I want to explain to you my relationship with my wife's mother. Me and her were friendly. I respected her as a mother figure to my wife and a somewhat mother figure to me, but she didn't really like me. She was friendly to me, never had an argument with her. It wasn't something personal with me, but she didn't really like my presence. I think it had to do with the fact that she didn't trust men anymore because of my wife's father. But although she didn't like me, she respected me as her daughter's partner and accepted me and even gave me good advice in life. Now update with my wife. She's way better now. Still not her full self, but she started being a bit annoying again. After some of your advice, I decided to wait a bit to prank her until I thought she was ready for a prank. After like 1 month, one morning I woke up before her, got out of bed, went to her side of the bed, and started kissing her cheek while waiting for her to wake up. When she woke up, she looked at me a bit confused and asked what I was doing. Well, I started kissing her more, and then I yelled, "I love you!" Her reaction was very odd. She was giggling the whole time I was kissing her, and after I yelled, she said she loves me too. I then told her I'm going to make some coffee for both of us, and you guessed it, I salted her coffee. She again reacted very well and spit it out and started laughing hysterically. In my opinion, that made her a bit better, but she was understandably still very sad. But her first prank was unexpected and very funny. After another month of me doing little pranks on her, she took revenge. I don't know what she got, but it was some type of chocolate cake that when you poke it with a knife, it explodes. I didn't know what the occasion for cake was, but hey, it was cake, so I didn't suspect anything, and so I tried cutting it up and it exploded. My wife was of course laughing very hard, and I just got the rest of the cake that was on the table and put it in her face, so we were both covered in chocolate cake. We were laughing so hard, we both fell on the floor, and after a few minutes, we started hugging each other on the floor and stayed like that for half an hour. Now she's still very sad, but she started being annoying again. But the biggest surprise is that she's pregnant with a girl. Yes, she's going to be a mother and I'm going to be a father. We're both so excited and we already know what the name of our precious daughter will be. My wife asked me, a bit scared, if we can name our daughter her mother's name. And I of course said yes, because firstly, it's my wife's most important person name, and secondly, it's a very pretty name. I kicked out my best friend because her boyfriend broke in and stole my figurines. Me, female 21, and my best friend Alice, also female 21, have been close for more than 10 years. We went to the same schools and study abroad in Canada together. I came to Canada many years before Alice and have been living in a house that my parents paid for. That's why when Alice arrived 4 months ago, I invited her to stay with me. She paid rent, but we never had a contract. It started when she got a new boyfriend. She's head over heels in love for him. His name's Kevin. She constantly invites him to my house without permission. He came and stayed for at least 6 days a week, sometimes overnight. I did have problems with Kevin staying in my house, but when I brought it up with Alice, she brushed it off and said he helped her adapt to this new life. He's Alice's only emotional support besides me. However, I discovered Kevin lurking around my house, especially near my bedroom and figurine room, many times when he was around. It happened a month ago when I got home from school. I didn't notice anything since all the doors were locked, even the door to my figurine room, until I discovered some of my figurines had disappeared. Neither Alice nor Kevin were home, so I assumed somebody had stolen them, since Alice never comes into my figurine room. I called Alice, she didn't pick up, but replied and said Kevin brought her to Ottawa for a surprise trip. I tried to explain that my figurines were gone. She asked if the house had been broken into and told me to go check around. Alice didn't come back until 2 days after that, but she kept sending me pictures of her going out with Kevin to fancy places. For those 2 days, I changed locks, set up hidden security cameras, alerted my parents, and I was panicking, and I was in an extremely distressed mood. Nothing happened for 2 weeks, but Kevin decided to steal again. I saw him, with 2 other guys I didn't know, lockpicking my figurine room door and coming out with my figurines through 2 cameras. I flipped out and called the police. Basically, got him arrested since stupid Kevin decided to go hang around. I believe he called Alice since she was home right after I did, crying and begging me to let Kevin go so we could talk. I literally showed Alice the evidence, but she still begged and said it was all a big misunderstanding. It has been 1 week since Kevin was arrested. Alice kept going after me and demanding that I let him go, and at one point, I just lost it. We were fighting right in the middle of the night, and I kicked her out of my house. Since then, I've been receiving a lot of phone calls from her family, from Kevin's family, and friends threatening me to have Alice back and drop the lawsuit that I pressed on Kevin. They're calling me the jerk for abandoning Alice for some figurines. They say that I'm not allowed to kick her out since she paid rent or they will sue. And now that I'm thinking about it, Alice has no one besides me and Kevin, and she's literally sleeping on my patio every night without eating and showering. So, am I the jerk? You're so far from the jerk, you're in a different galaxy. Check your local tenancy laws. It's possible that the eviction rules don't apply because you are her landlord and she lives with you. If they don't, tell her she needs to reach out to whomever for funds and needs to leave your property with her things immediately. As for the harassment, report is necessary to the proper folks. And I think it goes without saying that Alice knew how her little getaway was funded. That she has no one else local is not your problem nor your concern. She wanted you to let her thief of a boyfriend off the hook and absolutely would have expected you to still allow him in your home. She made her bed. Now she gets to lie in it for eternity. Not the jerk. Fender bender in the car wash, but who's actually at fault? Let's find out. Several years ago, I worked at a gas station with a car wash. This car wash uses a chain that pulls every vehicle through at the same speed, about 25 feet apart. The car wash was the cause of about 80% of all customer grievances. This one was a bit different. One weekday afternoon, I was stocking shelves when a young woman and an old man come in together. They spot me and say that we need to have a conversation, so I move back behind the counter. "Okay, so what can I do for you?" I ask with a smile. The woman is about to speak when the old man cuts her off. "Your car wash damaged my car. Both of ours." Not the first time that I've heard this. "Huh, how so?" I ask. The woman chimes in. "We were both in the car wash. I was ahead of him, and the car wash pulled his car into the back of mine. Hard." Immediate red flag. That's impossible. The chain can't pull one vehicle faster or slower than another. So I tell them exactly that. The woman says, "Is it Pop?" "Are you calling me a liar?" the man asks, interrupting her. She's visibly annoyed. "What I'm saying," I point out to the man, "is that the car wash couldn't have done this. Either you," I make eye contact with the woman, "hit the brakes," I look back at the man, "or you hit the gas." "I didn't touch the brakes," the woman said, sounding as though she started second-guessing herself. "I'm not stupid," the man shot back. "I never touched the gas pedal." I had a feeling that the older guy was probably the one at fault here, so he was my prime suspect. "Well, thankfully the car wash is lined up with cameras, so I'll just go rewind the footage and see what happened," I say, matter-of-factly. That's not necessary. We'll just have the company pay for the damages," the man says agreeably. Well, the company is going to want to review the footage anyway, so I might as well do it now. No, let's not waste any more of our time," the man says nervously. I exaggeratingly raise an eyebrow at him, then glance over at her. She clues in that I'm laying the pressure on him and also looks at him suspiciously. "Oh, but surely the camera footage will prove your innocence, sir." Silence. Yup, it's him. So I review the footage, and sure enough, while he was being pulled by the chain at first, he hit the gas and rear-ended her. I came back behind the counter and looked at the woman. Well, turns out he hit the gas and rear-ended you. Now, even though it happened in the car wash, it wasn't caused by the car wash, so this matter will have to be solved between the two of you. If you would like the camera footage to provide to your insurance, I'd be happy to give it to you. I look over at the old man with a smirk. He clearly died a little on the inside, knowing that he's done for. She thanked me and looks over at him as if to say, "Pay up, sucker." Am I the jerk for not paying my boyfriend back after he didn't get me the right birthday cake? I definitely have a bit of a complex about this kind of stuff because of how I grew up. Always with my siblings getting what they asked for while I almost never did, and generally feeling like I never get my turn at things, so it will be helpful to know if I'm justified or overreacting. My boyfriend and I have been dating for 10 months, and it was my birthday yesterday. I put a lot of effort into birthdays, including his, and I was pretty excited about it for the last month or so. There's a local bakery that makes a really good-looking pineapple upside-down cake. I've been really wanting to try it and have been saving it for my birthday. About a month in advance, I told him my birthday was coming up and gave him a few activity ideas and told him that I didn't need a gift, but I really wanted a pineapple upside-down cake from XYZ Bakery. He said sure. Now, I know this was probably annoying, but I did mention this specific cake several times, even before last month. Like, we would drive by the bakery and I'd say something like, "Oh, hey, that's the place with the pineapple cake. I want to do that for my birthday." I wasn't deliberately hammering the point home or anything, or aware that it was going to end in a cake-centered conflict, but there were a couple occasions where it came up. And then a week before my birthday, I did text him a reminder about the cake so that he would have the bakery info on hand. Yesterday rolls around and my boyfriend comes over to my apartment and gives me a gift, which is a Kindle. Not a bad gift, and I know they're expensive, but not something particularly relevant to me either. Then he says, "Let's have cake," and presents what you all know by now is not the pineapple upside-down cake, but just a regular grocery store cake with the frosting balloons. Vanilla cake with vanilla buttercream. You guys, I was legitimately sad. If I knew he was going to drop the ball on this, I would have just gotten myself a pineapple cake months ago instead of waiting. I was on the verge of tears because of not getting the one thing I actually wanted, which was that stupid cake. So I told him I was very disappointed and that he should just go home. He had 2 tickets to a comedy show for that night, and one ended up going to waste. Now he's annoyed because it is of course just a cake and wants me to reimburse the cost of the wasted ticket. It was only about $30, but I'm bristling at the principle of it and said I didn't owe him the money. He sent me a Venmo request for $30. Am I the jerk if I don't pay? Not the jerk. I'm sick of boyfriends and husbands getting a pass on things like this. You clearly told him what you wanted, and then he didn't even get the cake. You asked him for one thing, and he couldn't even do that right. Exactly. How hard is it to follow instructions? I mean, you needn't put any effort. You are told exactly what she wants. I get wanting to give her a more thoughtful gift, but OP said the Kindle wouldn't be relevant to things they like to do. If my husband kept telling me, "Babe, I think this cake would be cool for my birthday," it would be the first thing on my mind to purchase for his birthday. I mean, either he's not listening or he doesn't care. Guy, girls are so confusing. Why can't they just say what they're thinking? We're not mind readers. Girl, I'd love a pineapple upside down cake for my birthday. Literally, just the cake would make me happy. I'm saving the opportunity to try it for my birthday. Please get me that specific cake that I want for my birthday. Guy, gets girl anything but cake. Girl cries out of frustration. Guy, I think you need to calm down. I don't understand why you're upset. This entire post pains me. You are not the jerk. Edit. Some fragile egos have been bruised by my incredibly relevant comment. This comment is a literal imitation of the scenario OP explained, yet some of you are taking it pretty hard. This situation absolutely does happen. If this post had been about a neglectful girlfriend who doesn't properly communicate her needs, then I would have mocked that too. Calm down, dudes. We know you're not all bad. If you're a guy and you don't do this to your girlfriend, then you should have been able to figure out that this isn't about you. Everyone sucks here. This may sound a little direct, but I think you both need to grow up. Your birthday isn't about asking for things that you want and getting them. That's for kids. You're an adult. If there's something you want for your birthday, you get it yourself. Other people get you gifts from their heart. They do what they can for you to honor your birthday. Never reject a gift because you think it's not good enough. It's truly immature behavior. Any gift should be accepted with grace. On a separate note, if you feel like your boyfriend doesn't respect you or listen to you or care enough to take the hint that you're casually dropping, then maybe you have a separate issue. You two may not be right for each other, or maybe it's just too early for either of you to be in a relationship when you're this immature. You're the jerk. I don't care what the top comment says. He messed up, but acting that way is so childish. Edit. I would hate to date all of you downvoters. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. To be honest, I would have just gotten them the cake they wanted. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with someone who flips out over me getting them the wrong cake. Careful, Karen. People might get mad at you for saying that. You know how serious some people are about the things they ask for and feel entitled to. Don't remind me, Reddit boy. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my boyfriend's flights to come visit me? I, 26 female, am in a long-distance relationship with Jay, 27 male. We've been friends for 5 years and dating for about a year and a half. Because of a previous failed long-distance relationship, I said from the very beginning that I didn't want to be in one again. But then lockdown rolled around and we were living in the same city for a bit, and I fell for him and got myself into another long-distance relationship. When our office reopened and I moved back home, 1,100 miles away, we agreed to see each other once a month, alternating locations. We've been good about keeping this schedule, but there is the occasional month where I'll go and visit him instead of him coming to me. Whoever is visiting pays for their own flights, and the person hosting covers dinners and activities. I feel that it has been a fair arrangement, as we both have full-time jobs and make decent money. However, I'm much better at money management and saving than he is, so he often finds himself stressing about funds, but still buying unnecessary stuff and making poor financial choices. It stresses me out to no end, and he knows this and is trying to do better. I recently received a raise at work and was super excited about it, given that life in general has been getting much more expensive. When I told Jay about my raise, his first reaction was to ask me to start paying for his flights to see me, as well as continuing to pay for mine to see him. I reminded him that's not the arrangement we had, and that my lifestyle does not change with this raise. I just plan on putting more money into my savings. He seemed really upset by this answer. I said that I don't think it's fair that I have to pay for everything just because he chooses to spend his money on unnecessary things. He says that I'm well off, and since I won't pay for his ticket, it makes him feel like I don't want to see him. I do want to see him. I just feel like it's not my responsibility to support him financially. And if I do, it will enable his current spending habits. He said it's incredibly selfish of me to think this way, and I understand where he's coming from, but I just don't agree. So, am I the jerk or selfish for refusing to pay for his flights to visit me? Unnecessary stuff. He enjoys collecting a certain type of liquor that can be hundreds of dollars per bottle, making modifications to his car, and other pretty expensive hobbies. Edit. We alternate months and visit each other evenly. The exception is over the summer. We met because our families have summer places in the same little lake community, so in the summer we meet there. It's a 2-hour drive for him and a 3-hour flight for me. But that I'm totally okay with. What Jay chooses to spend his money on is none of your business, just like it's none of his what you do with your money. Both of you had an agreement, which seems perfectly reasonable. Honestly, do you want to be in a relationship with him? He's financially irresponsible and not willing to change. Do you want to eventually build a life with him? Not the jerk. Relationships are a two-way street. He wants yours to be a one-way street financially. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. It's reasonable for each of you to pay for your own travel. You do not need to subsidize his expensive hobbies. Your approaches to finances represent a pretty major incompatibility. Even if you're otherwise happy right now, this does not look built for the long term. Am I the jerk for saying my in-laws have no right to judge me for not adopting my stepkids? I, 35 female, have been married to my husband, Michael, who's 38, for 5 years now. I'm the stepmother of his 2 boys from his first marriage, Lee, who's 14, and Kai, who's 8. Their mother passed 7 years ago. Kai calls me mom and has since he was 4. Lee calls me by my first name. Lee has wanted me to adopt him for some time now, and it was something discussed. The reason it has not happened is Lee does not want me to adopt him, and my husband did not feel comfortable with me adopting only Kai. He's worried about it coming between the boys, and Lee may be feeling left out eventually. But I think the main reason is he worries about the judgment of others and the fact that the comments could get to both of the boys. I love both Lee and Kai, but my relationship with each of them is different. Kai is my son, and we have a mother-son relationship. Lee is my stepson, who I love, but he doesn't always like that I'm here. Sometimes he gets annoyed that I'm here instead of his mom. Sometimes he treats me okay, but he has never been okay with me filling too much of his mom's role in his life. Our relationship is a delicate balancing act. The boys have been in therapy. We also did therapy together as a family. My husband asked the therapist for their opinion on the adoption, and she said we made the right decision, and that when the boys get older, she said once they were around 10 and 16 respectively, and their feelings have not changed, then adopting just Kai could be okay. But to make sure Lee is spoken to again and given the option to express if he changed his mind. This has been challenging because so many people have opinions. I hate seeing Kai sad, but I don't want to force anything on Lee either, or risk him feeling a certain way if we make the wrong decision. My in-laws mentioned I should adopt the boys about a month into the marriage. At the time, my husband told them we didn't need to be rushing anything. But now they're aware of what's going on, and they told me it's shameful that I have not adopted the boys and become their legal mother. They said Lee is depriving both himself and his brother of the legal protection of being their mother, and that I'm showing clear favoritism by making it obvious I want to adopt Kai and not Lee. I asked them how I make that obvious, and they ignored my question. They told me I should have jumped at the chance to be their mother, that it was monstrous to consider making one of them mine and discarding the other like yesterday's garbage. That angered me because I've always done my best. I ended up saying that they had no right to judge me for not adopting the boys because they have no idea what it's like to be a step-parent, and especially to stepkids who have lost their biological mother. And they have no idea what it's like when both of the kids want different relationships with you. They told me you don't have to be a step-parent to know someone is wrong and how they step-parent. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and well done as a step-parent. You came into the boys' lives at very different points in time, and you're respecting their individual wishes. It would be worse for you to adopt Lee when that isn't what he wants, and to be honest, it can be an option that is always on the table even when he becomes a legal adult. Am I the jerk for not paying for all of my daughter's camp? My daughter has been going to the same summer camp since she was 7. Her mother and I separated when she was 12, and we split everything evenly and always paid half and half for her camp. We never intended on it being a long-term thing, but she made friends, and they always looked forward to seeing each other every summer. Back in October of 2021, I came home to my daughter with a friend I have never seen before. She introduces her as her friend from camp. She was in the area because her family was going to Disney World. Her and my daughter were very excited to see each other, but I was a bit apprehensive about having a stranger in the home, but she stayed overnight sometimes. One night, I was cleaning through the room and realized I couldn't find an envelope I got from the bank a few days prior. After tearing apart the house and not finding it, I concluded it must have been my daughter's camp friend. I never lose stuff, and I lose money the few days a stranger from across the country has been in my house? I was livid, and when my daughter finally came back, I asked her about it, and she told me to lower my voice. Her friend was coming in as well, and they didn't see it. I confronted her friend, who got overly upset, saying her family is wealthy and she doesn't need money, and my daughter was defending her, saying that they never were apart, so there was no way she could have it. Regardless, I told her she wasn't invited inside and had to leave. This caused a huge argument with my daughter, who didn't speak to me for weeks after saying I'm disgusting. She wouldn't even agree to our custody agreement and stayed at her mother's house for months. We eventually started talking, but it was awkward and short. In the summer of 2022, her mother asked me to pay for her half of the summer camp, and I refused. Why would I pay to board my daughter with a thief? This caused another huge fight, and my ex paid for it all that summer. My daughter hasn't spoken to me since and refuses to come over. I decided to sell my car recently, and before I sold it, I did a deep clean and ended up finding the envelope in my trunk. I was so confused about how it got there, but was relieved to find it. I felt terrible about the situation with my daughter, so I texted her letting her know I found the money and that I'm sorry. We spoke, and she said she wants me to say sorry to her friend on a 3-way call, which I did, and my daughter said to make up for it, I need to pay for all of her camp, just like her mother did last year when I refused. I was taken aback and said no, I'd pay for just half. She got upset again, saying it's the least I could do after I refused to pay last summer over money I misplaced after blaming her friend and embarrassing her, and I'm a huge jerk. Am I the jerk? I truly thought her friend robbed me and that it was the right thing to do to not send her there. You're the jerk. You accused this kid of being a thief with precisely zero evidence that she stole your money. Your only reasoning was essentially that you couldn't possibly be at fault because evidently you don't think it's reasonable to consider you left it in your trunk. Never mind, you're a jerk. Then your ex had to cover your share of camp last year because you were still making baseless accusations with no evidence. If you want to stick to 50-50, then you owe your ex for last year because she covered your share. Or you could just pay the entire amount this year. You made a ton of massive mistakes here, and you want to pretend like none of them even happened. Not how it works. You need to own up to your mistakes and make them right. Part of that is paying for what your ex covered last year because it was a mistake to make those accusations and not pay. Neighbor blocked our car in the driveway, so I got her car towed. My fiance, 30 female, and I, 29 male, barely moved into this house a few months ago. The first week, we noticed a car parked right on our driveway, which obviously didn't belong there. When we went outside, the lady who lived next door asked if this was okay. Her house is right at the corner of the street and there's no driveway. She said the last owner was fine with letting her park there, so she hoped we wouldn't mind. Our driveway is big enough for 2 cars, so we said for now it was okay. After our son was born and I had to go back to work, we decided to buy a second car so it's easier for her to get around. All 3 cars don't fit, so we had to tell our neighbor she can't park there anymore. Ever since, it's become a whole issue. Once, she was parked behind me when I was leaving early in the morning, so I had to go banging on her door at 6 a.m. She had the audacity to be mad for me waking her up. I reminded her that she can't park there again, so we thought she got the message. Second time was when we were on our way home from the park. She was already parked there, so we would have had to park behind her. I went to go knock, and she said she was just putting her groceries away since we weren't home and the driveway is closer. This last time when it happened, my car wasn't working, so my brother came to pick me up early. My fiance had to take our son to his 4-month appointment, but the lady's darn car was parked right behind her, so there was no way for her to pull out of the driveway. She told me the neighbor wasn't answering the door. It got late, so she had to reschedule her appointment. I came home after and I called the cops to come deal with this because I was just so tired. Since they couldn't reach her, they did end up towing the car. Once she found out, she was at my door, angry. She had been a few blocks down at her friend's house, which was why she didn't answer. But now she says she's stressed because she doesn't have the money to get her car back and it's our fault. Since both our cars were there, she assumed we were both home, and if anything, we would have used my car to pull out of the driveway. My neighbor kept complaining how wrong we were to go to that extreme of making her lose her car when she absolutely needs it. We've just ignored her since then, but now every time we're stepping out, she glares right at us. I've had my car towed before too, so we know it's a nightmare of a feat to get it out of impound. That's why I'm asking if I'm the jerk. It's been almost a week since this happened, with still no sign of her car parked on the street, so obviously she hasn't got it back yet. Not the jerk. You asked nicely, she ignored you. You pounded on her door on repeated occasions not so nicely, and she ignored that you didn't want her parking there. The next logical step was to get the car towed, because she wasn't getting the message. Bet she won't park there once she has her car back. Problem solved. Also, if the doctor charged you for a visit that you had to cancel last minute, I would send the bill to her too. Don't expect her to pay it, but at least to realize that she is costing you for being the jerk. In my opinion, you gave her too many chances. None of this was your fault. You were 100% clear with her from the beginning. Your neighbor has some seriously skewed way of rationalizing this. Don't let it rub off on you. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. If she needed her car, she shouldn't be parking it somewhere where she knew she no longer had permission to park it. Get a camera though, because retaliation is likely. Am I the jerk for wanting my stepdaughter to switch schools her junior year to live with us? My husband and I have been married for 2 years and have 5 kids. His daughter from a previous marriage, who's 16, my 2 sons from a previous relationship, 13 and 15, and 2 kids together who are 3 and 1. My husband's daughter lived primarily with her mother until she was in 8th grade, when she was offered a scholarship to go to a very good boarding school for high school. I've never agreed with the idea of sending teenagers to live away from family, but her mother and my then fiance agreed that it would be beneficial for her. They drafted a new custody agreement to reflect the new school schedule. My husband moved out of state, so he always had summers and holidays anyway. When I married my husband, I thought that she would be just a day boarder, which seems better than full-time, so I let it go. By the time I learned the truth, 2020 was in full swing, and removing her wouldn't have been safe even if she wanted to leave, which she didn't. Fast forward to 2022. She's 16 years old and a junior. I recently learned that her mother moved back to her home country 6 months ago and has been letting my stepdaughter manage her own money. This means that there's now not even a parent in the same state or even the side of the country for my stepdaughter. She is completely independent in her day-to-day life. My stepdaughter has every weekend unsupervised to do whatever she pleases and independent access to not only multiple major cities, but is only a day trip from another country that she has dual citizenship in. I've seen Facebook posts of her going to art shows in other states without even pretending to ask one of her parents for permission. This isn't acceptable. It's not okay for a teen to just go live her own life, especially to this degree. We have 2 sons that are only 1 and 3 years behind her, and they're starting to see the double standard as well. I would never let any of my kids do the things my stepdaughter is doing. She's my kid too, and this needs to stop. She needs to change schools to be either with her mother or with us and be part of a family. My husband says that it's different because she was raised differently and is just more responsible, but that's BS. If he actually thinks she's not being a normal 16-year-old with that level of freedom, he's lying to himself. My stepdaughter loves her school, of course, and is very resistant to changing schools for all of 1 year of high school to leave her friends, and no doubt doesn't want to actually have rules. I'm still pushing the issue, and now my husband and stepdaughter are mad at me for trying to change the status quo. The boys are mad at me for having double standards, and other family members are mad at me for either over or understepping in my role. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. She's at a boarding school and doesn't need to ask permission to see art shows. You're being dramatic, and she's not even your kid. On top of that, you're controlling. You're acting as if she's getting into trouble and interacting with bad people her age or older. Calm down. You have no good reason for her to change schools, and you are overstepping your role. Her parents already created a plan, and you have to respect that. She's asking the school for day-to-day things she would need parental permission for, and unless OP is a time traveler, the telephone and email exists. Stepdaughter could very well be asking mom over the phone or via text to be getting permission to travel out of state. The only point OP might have is to suggest that dad's, assuming he wants that, permission be necessary to travel out of state, etc. Most teenagers have spending money that they can act with on their own. Daughter likely has a roommate and an RA equivalent on the floor, house mother, etc., which are possibly stricter than most parents. I'm sure his kid would tell him before she goes out of state, so it's not like she's completely running rogue. OP is just mad she has no control over a situation that doesn't concern her. You're the jerk. She hasn't given you any reason to doubt her ability to take care of herself and behave appropriately, so you would be punishing her for literally nothing. She's going to art shows? How wild. Just leave the kid alone. She's not your kid, and she's been fine this long. Removing her from a situation that works for her and isn't harming anyone would be cruel and unreasonable. You should be proud she's independent and cultured. Am I the jerk for taking my brother-in-law to small claims court over art supplies? A bit of context. I, 29 male, like to draw and try other mediums as well. As such, I've accumulated a lot of art supplies over the past few years. My wife, Sally, 27 female, also dabbles a bit, and we have converted one of the rooms in our home into an art studio of sorts. There's easily a few $1,000s worth of art supplies in that room, and we tend to keep it locked for that reason. Most important to me are my pencils and markers, which were not cheap. On to the story. Sally and I had her family over for her aunt's birthday a few weeks back, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law brought their kids with them, who are 7 and 6. We had forgotten to lock the door to the room that day. About an hour into the party, I noticed that both of the kids were nowhere to be seen, so I asked my sister-in-law if she knew where they were. She said that they were drawing in the other room. I asked if my wife was with them, and she said she just told them which room it was in. I immediately rushed over to the art room and found it was a total mess. Most devastatingly was the fact that all of my markers were ruined because the kids were using way too much force, causing the tips to fray. I yelled at them to get out, and they started crying. My brother-in-law ran over and started yelling at me, saying that they're just kids and it's just markers. I told him that these markers alone were $17 a piece, and he said I was stupid for paying that much. Sally tried to defuse the situation, but my brother-in-law started yelling at her too, saying we can't have this much art supplies and not expect kids to want to use it. I told him he's paying to replace the markers and the other supplies they ruined, and he told me to buzz off, and he left. Everyone left shortly after that. I totaled up the damages, and I need to replace about $375, and found that the kids drew on a piece I had spent the past week working on, as well as ruining a finished piece Sally did. I sent him a bill, and he blocked me. So I talked with my friend, who was a lawyer, and had him draft a claim for small claims court and a letter to send my brother-in-law. I paid him for this, of course. My wife is in agreement about this, but her family has been mobbing us, telling us we're being ridiculous over some markers. Only my father-in-law, who also has taken up painting recently, and my other sister-in-law say that brother-in-law has to pay. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Parents need to watch their own kids. How entitled is it to just send them to a room in someone else's house and tell them to go wild with whatever is in there without even asking? I don't get all the "you're the jerks" and "everyone sucks" here, saying that you should have locked the door. How about the parents watch their kids and make sure they stay with them? Though in this case, that wouldn't have helped because they felt their kids were entitled to your stuff. The way they wrecked 2 pieces of actual art is the worst part of all. Karen demands to dance with me at my own wedding. My dad married Sandy when I was 16. Sandy has no kids. She was upset to learn that I mostly went to my grandparents' house after school and that I wanted to continue that when she moved in, something I had been doing since my mom passed when I was 4. I'm close to my grandparents. My mom was their only kid, and I'm their only grandkid. So maybe that made us a little bit closer, or maybe it's just all the time that we spent together. But anyway, that was a time when Sandy wanted me to be home after school instead of at my grandparents' because she wanted the chance to have some mother-son time, and she said she was taking her role as my mother seriously. I told her it was nice and all, but that she wasn't my mother, and that was okay, not to stress out over it. A few weeks after that exchange, she told me about her first marriage, how she raised her stepkids from the time that they were elementary schoolers to teenagers, and then her husband passed and they wanted to be with blood family and cut all contact with her. She was like, "I know you're older and all, but I've always wanted to be a mother, and you lost yours when you were 4, so why not let me be your new mother, and we can both get what we need?" I told her that was not something I needed, and sorry. I knew she was never happy about that. She always kept trying to push that boundary. She would introduce herself as my mom, me as her son, and would talk about being a boy mom. I never wanted a new mom and always made that clear. It was a couple of weeks ago that things turned a little nasty. She heard I was doing a special dance with my grandma at my wedding in November and told me she deserved a dance too. She said she's the person who is in the position of mom, She's the future grandmother of my kids, and she deserves her chance to be honored with something public like that. She told me I'm a young man and need to learn how to treat a woman who has been in the role of my mom for a decade now. I laughed, which only made her angry. She told me she was demanding a dance after everything she's done for me. This is when I told her that she needs to accept she is not a mother, that as sad as it is, she can't make it happen with someone else's kid, and that she is not entitled to demand a dance at my wedding since she's not a mother or a parent to me. She said, knowing what she has been through, I should be ashamed of myself for talking to her like that. My dad called me after and asked if there was anything I could give her to make her feel better because she's really hurt. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. That's a lovely thing to do for your grandmother. You told stepmother she wasn't a mother figure to you, and that's your choice. Don't feel bad about it, OP. Have a lovely wedding when it comes. Not the jerk. You were 16 when she became your stepmother. You made it clear that you didn't want her to take a motherly role in your life, and she has repeatedly ignored and pushed boundaries. It may have been harsh to have worded it as you did, but she didn't seem to take no for an answer. Not the jerk. What's really sad is that she's missed out on having any sort of a relationship with you because she's pushed and pushed for a relationship she's neither entitled to or should have expected. Not the jerk. Throughout the entire time you've known her, she has been concerned only with her own needs and has ignored yours, as well as regularly stomped all over your established boundaries. If she truly wanted a mother-son relationship, then she would have offered and then stepped back and let whatever would have happened happen. As it is, by pushing so hard, she made this inevitable. Also, your father should have shut this down the first time it happened. This is almost as much his fault as hers. By the way, her issues with her previous family are not yours to deal with. It's hers, and it is unfair of her to make it your responsibility. Would I be the jerk for going to the funeral of my ex-girlfriend's brother and missing my sister-in-law's wedding? I, 25 male, am in a relationship with Amelia, who's 26. We've been together for 2 years and she's wonderful. We live together and I think we are close to engagement. In the past, I was in a relationship with Julia, 25 female. We met in high school and had a very passionate relationship for 5 years, but it didn't work out. In the end, it got quite heated between us and even with her parents, so we blocked each other. Julia had a brother, Dan, who's 2 years younger, and we always shared a special bond. Like me, he wanted to become a doctor, and I helped him with med school. Even after the breakup, we stayed close. Julia and their parents weren't aware. He was definitely very important for me, almost like a younger brother. Unfortunately, Dan had an accident and passed last week. I didn't know until Julia came to my home to announce it 2 days ago. I'm absolutely devastated. She apologized because she wasn't aware that Dan and I were still close. She also thanked me for being there for him when he was fighting depression and that all of her family would like to see me at his funeral next Sunday in their hometown, 7-hour drive. I replied that I wasn't sure if I could come because I'm running low on money at the moment and my car will be at the mechanics. She said she could drive me there, but she had to be there 2 days earlier to help with the organization. I said that I'll think about it. We exchanged numbers and hugged. She cried a little and said she was sorry for all of the things of the past and she was happy to see me again. Amelia came home at this moment and I explained the situation when Julia left. She already knew about my past relationship with Julia and my friendship with Dan. Amelia told me that I wouldn't be able to go to the funeral because the wedding of her sister is the same day and we both agreed to go. I said that I need a bit of time to process all this. The following morning, I had a very emotional phone call with Dan and Julia's parents. They apologized for the past and thanked me for being there for Dan, that they would always consider me family from now. They insisted that they would like to host me for the funeral to save me cost. After reflection, even if it sucks for Amelia and the wedding, I cannot imagine missing Dan's funeral. I talked with my co-residents and the head of my unit, and they're okay with me missing a few days and covering for me. When I told my decision to Amelia yesterday, she blew up and said that I'm a huge jerk to ditch her and her family in favor of my exes. She said that I committed to the wedding and I couldn't leave her alone to reconnect with my ex. We had a big argument and we haven't talked much since. I had some messages from her friends and her sister. They said that I'm a major jerk for abandoning my girlfriend in favor of my ex. I was sure that I was making the right choice, but I started to feel bad and second-guess myself. So, am I the jerk? I'm gonna say no jerks here, because I understand wanting to be at Dan's funeral, and it's not like you're missing the wedding to go party with friends or something, but I can also understand why your girlfriend would be upset. You're going with your ex a few days early and staying with your ex-girlfriend's family who you didn't get along with in the past to the point of blocking them on your phone. Would you be totally fine with her missing a, hopefully, once-in-a-lifetime family event to be with an ex for a funeral and being with them for days, not just a few hours? I'm not going to sugarcoat this. There's a chance you come back from the funeral with her stuff moved out. I agree with no jerks here. I wanted to say you would not be the jerk because in a perfect world, going to a funeral would not be a problem and everyone would understand why it would be so important for you to go. However, there are definitely a lot of complicated feelings involved. Your girlfriend is disappointed you're backing out of the wedding and jealous you're going to be with your ex. When I'm just reading this online, I can absolutely see your point and think, yeah, of course he should go. But if I'm honest with myself, if I was in your girlfriend's shoes, I don't know if I would be able to rise above those emotions and think the same. So you are definitely not the jerk for wanting to go, and while it would be nice for your girlfriend to be able to see it that way, I certainly won't call her the jerk for feeling disappointed and jealous over the situation. I hope you both can take a step back, work on communicating through this, and figure something out. It is definitely a tough spot to be in. Okay, wait. You and your ex blocked each other because it got so heated, but she came by your house after her brother passed, and she didn't know you and the brother were still close? How did she know where you lived if you hadn't been in contact? She wants you to go home to the funeral and stay with her extra days? Hello? If you were blocked for years, how did she know where you live? None of this adds up. Seems like you might have still been in touch with her. Also, a funeral is for the living. You already had a phone conversation with her family and visited with her when she showed up at your door by mental telepathy since y'all had no contact. You say you want to marry your girlfriend now, but you're picking your old girlfriend and her family over her. This has nothing to do with Dan. He's gone. You're going to stay with your ex for days when emotions are everywhere and think that your girlfriend's supposed to be okay with that? This is the end of your current relationship, and you will only have yourself to blame. You need to say it like it is. You're choosing your past instead of your future, and you will only have yourself to blame when you have to build a new future because of your choices. That's my hoodie, not a dog leash. So this just happened. I, 38 female, have worked different retail and customer service jobs most of my life, and I've dealt with my share of entitled customers at work. I've even been mistaken as an employee at a bunch of stores, but this was my first confrontational experience as a customer. My daughter and I were at Wally World getting dog food and a couple of last-minute ingredients for dinner. I'm loading a large bag of dog food while trying to keep a toddler entertained when it happened. An entitled Karen appeared. Obnoxiously pink outfit, fake gaudy jewelry, badly dyed hair, and nails long enough to make a tiger jealous. I didn't even know she was there until I felt a sharp jab in the shoulder with those nails. I turned around to an expression that could curdle milk. I say, yes? "Load 4 bags of dog food in my cart," she demanded, pointing at the 40-pound bags that I had just loaded into my cart. No, please. No polite, would or could you. Just a terse order like she was talking to someone so beneath her that she couldn't be bothered to say anything else. I wasn't even slightly resembling a worker since I was wearing jeans, sneakers, and a black hoodie from a local haunted house. Not to mention my daughter in the cart next to me. Still, I wasn't in a rush and my daughter wasn't being fussy. If Karen had asked nicely, I could have gladly helped. I've done that a bunch of times before and have always been glad to help, so long as I got a please and thank you from the person I'm helping. Instead, I just said, "I don't work here, I'm shopping." I was hoping that being direct and staying close to my daughter would show that I was busy. But no, her lip curled even harder and sounded insulted when she said, "So, you're not going to help me?" I just said, "No, I need to finish my shopping." Not wanting to risk getting caught up in one of the many "I don't work here" lady stories that I read, I grabbed my cart with my daughter and started walking away. I just wanted to get us away from that situation ASAP. That was my mistake. Never turn your back on a rabid animal. I barely registered Karen's indignant huff before she grabbed me by the hood of my sweater and yanked. This freaked me out from suddenly being choked. I'm someone that's been trained in self-defense, martial arts, and was raised around a bunch of bikers. If maternal instincts weren't telling me to get my daughter out of danger, I probably would have done a lot more damage to the Karen than I did. I swung my arm back as hard as I could to force her to let go. I made contact with something hard enough that she let go with a yelp, and I hightailed it to the front of the store to report what happened. The employees, manager, and security were on their game and immediately went looking for Karen as soon as I told them what happened and gave a description. Unfortunately, Karen was gone by the time they went looking for her. The manager still contacted police and a report was filed. I definitely wanted to press charges if I could. According to security, after this happened, she looked really upset and insulted, but then got a shocked look on her face. She started looking around until she looked directly at a camera. Karen then grabbed her purse and sprinted out of the store, leaving her cart and all of her groceries behind. Guess she wasn't a complete idiot after all and realized how badly she had messed up. The manager promised to keep an eye out for her. The police said they would contact me if needed. My daughter had no idea that anything bad happened. She was giggling when I was running her and the cart to the front. The next day, I got a call from the officer I talked to. Either Karen grew a conscience or someone forced her to turn herself in. She showed up at the police station the next day looking like a scolded puppy when she got there, officer's description. Officer asked if I still wanted to press charges and said she'd likely get probation or community service. I told him that I did still want to. Part of me wonders, did she actually feel bad? Did her husband or wife or whatever ask her why she didn't have the dog food and force her to confess? Or did she come in so she wouldn't be arrested and get a lighter sentence? I don't know. I'm just surprised that she did. Am I the jerk for not wanting to get rid of my roommates as per my wife's demands? Okay, backstory time. I, male 34, and my wife, female 34, will have been married for 3 years this upcoming December. I own a 2-family house on an acre in central Jersey that I purchased when I was 25. I rent out one side and live in the other. I have 2 spare bedrooms that I also sublet, one to a dear friend of mine, male 35, and another to my cousin, female 35. I have always rented these rooms, and having the extra income between the rental side and the rooms I rent on my side means the house basically pays for itself mortgage-wise. I have to come out of pocket for utilities such as garbage, electricity, fuel, oil, etc. My monthly cost of living is anywhere from $600 to $800, handling the aforementioned bills. Relatively cheap for New Jersey, where a 2-bedroom apartment can run you $2,500. So now to the issue at hand. My wife wants to get rid of our roommates. As of now, she lives for free, absolutely zero cost of living, which has helped her significantly regarding paying down debts, fixing her credit, and so on. She's not out of the woods yet, but she's well on her way. I'd say in about another year or so, she'll be 100% debt-free. She has expressed in the past that she would like to live alone, but at the time, it just wasn't economically feasible for us to do so. She wasn't working, then lockdown happened, blah blah blah. No big deal, right? Also, I should mention, you wouldn't even know we have roommates. Sometimes I go days without bumping into one of them. Anyways, this week she slaps me with an ultimatum out of the blue that either the roommates move out or she's going to leave me. I stated that I did not think that was the smartest financial move, as she only wants to give them 30 days, which would mean we would be looking at having to come up with another $1,600 the following month. Cue argument. She states that she can afford to make up the difference and that paying it would be worth being able to live alone together. Am I the jerk for thinking this is stupid? That giving up almost $20,000 a year in rental income on the drop of a dime doesn't make any sense? Not to mention telling a friend of 22 years, as well as my cousin, "Sorry guys, the wife's giving you 30 days notice." Good luck. Furthermore, this income allows us to travel whenever we want, buy whatever we want, go out whenever we want. It basically helps make us very flexible financially. Also, why can't we compromise? Okay, you want them gone? Let's stick it out for 1 more year, knock out the rest of your debt, and also give the roomies plenty of notice that this is what we're going to do. No jerks here. You're trying to make an emotional issue financial. This is not a financial issue to her. She'd rather be in a little debt than live with your friend and cousin. Your wife is saying she wants alone time with you without always having to be on. What she is asking and stating is very reasonable. Very few married people want to live with roommates for a very good reason: privacy. While these are your friends, you're asking way too much of your wife to expect her to live with your cousin and your buddy indefinitely. She's done so for 3 years. That's enough. Honestly, everything you've stated clearly illustrates that you value money and you value your friendships over your wife's comfort and feeling of security in this relationship. How would you feel if you lived with your wife's cousin and her BFF? If you never got to just hang out in your home without having to be on? Dude, read the room. Life changes and needs in a relationship change. You are not swinging single, This is not your girlfriend, this is your wife, whom you should consider a full and equal partner with equal say in this relationship. You've made it clear you do not. You're the jerk. You're willing to let your wife leave you because of money? She even offered to make up the difference. I guess my question to you is, what do you want out of a marriage? You need to start thinking of your family, your wife, and not your roommates and money. The fact that you might let her leave you over this situation is making the marriage not look too great. Am I the jerk for rushing home to get my sister's forgotten wedding veil, but giving up on bringing it to her? My oldest sister, Odette, just got married at a venue that, with no traffic, is about 2 hours and 15 minutes away. Odette planned to wear great-great-grandma Mary's veil, which has a distinct lace pattern and is passed to only the eldest daughter. In our family, it's considered good luck, heavily sentimental, and we have multiple bridal pictures of eldest daughters in the veil while standing with their mom and grandma. The bridal party and family met at Odette's house before driving to the venue. The veil had been in a garment bag, hung up in front of a closet door, but the door had been opened, the hanger fell off, and none of us missed it when we packed up. We made it to the venue by noon for the 4 p.m. wedding. Odette realized the veil was missing and ran to me in a panic, insisting I needed to be the one to go find it. Mom wouldn't drive fast enough, middle sister, Constance, was her maid of honor, and Dad was dealing with setup. I didn't think I could make it there and back, but Odette insisted and said that if needed, we could stall the ceremony a little. I floored it, but sat in bumper-to-bumper traffic for almost 2 hours. Was estimating I wouldn't be at her house until at least 2:45 p.m. I texted Odette that if I didn't turn around now, I wasn't going to make it. She texted back, "Just get it here." When I emphasized that I wouldn't make it for her wedding ceremony or reception if I didn't turn around, she said, "The photographer doesn't leave until 7. Just get it here before then, so Mom, Grandma, and I can take pictures." I made it to her house on adrenaline, but it took me forever to find the veil and get on the road again. Odette's texts continued after the wedding ceremony and pictures. I was already exhausted, sitting in rush hour traffic, and upset that I'd missed the entire thing. After rereading our texts that were all about Mary's veil, I realized that she didn't care at all about me being there, which upset me enough to turn around at 5:30 p.m. with an estimated arrival of 6:30 p.m. and getting later. I texted Odette that I was sorry, but the veil was put up and the house key was in the flower pot. I woke up to a ton of angry texts from her accusing me of ruining her wedding and not trying hard enough to get back. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. When the absence of a veil ruins a wedding more than the absence of a family member, your priorities are skewed and you are owed nothing, especially from the family member who wasn't even missed. Not the jerk. I'm getting golden child vibes here, and I'm sorry that you were treated this way. You deserved better from your sister in this moment. Please take space for yourself. Also, if the veil was so important, it would have been with her dress. Just saying. Am I the jerk for asking my brother-in-law to stay with me when my husband was traveling? My husband, male 27, and I, female 25, got married a year ago. We're living together. My family doesn't live here. They live about 2 hours away. He recently got a promotion at his job. Our house is a little bit further away from the city. We live in a farm-type house, although it's not a very big portion of land. But we have neighbors that have bigger properties. Point is, our neighbors live kind of far away. With his new position, he'll need to travel sometimes. His first trip was last year. He had to travel for 2 days. I honestly did not have a good time because I was alone and away from neighbors. I did not feel safe. I spoke to him and we agreed that next time I'll ask a friend to come stay with me. Well, he needed to travel last week too. This time it was for 3 days. I told him I was going to ask a friend, Jennifer. He left early in the morning. I thought about it and then I started overthinking. I don't think I'll feel safe if it's just Jennifer and I. We're still 2 women alone. So I called brother-in-law, Ashton, male 24, to see if he could come stay with me instead. He agreed, so I called Jennifer to tell her my plans had changed. He came over around 6 that day. We had dinner together, chatted, and watched a movie together. We mainly did those things during the time he stayed here. My husband and I spoke on the phone, but I didn't tell him I had called his brother instead of Jennifer. Ash and I are close. I'm close with all of his family, so I didn't think he would mind. My husband came home last Thursday around 8 p.m. When he saw Ashton was here, he was a bit taken aback. As it was late, I told brother-in-law to stay one more night if he wanted to, and he did. I could tell my husband was upset. I asked him what happened, and he told me nothing. The next day, after he got home from work, he was still upset, so I asked him again what's going on. He said that we had agreed that I was going to call a friend. He didn't agree with having brother-in-law over. I gave him my reasons as to why I called him instead. He still said that I shouldn't have called him because I know that their relationship is not the best. We argued, and now he's even more upset with me for not even apologizing. He asked if I'm going to call Ash every time he goes out, and I told him yes. I'll do that because I don't want to stay alone. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your husband sounds totally insecure. Big surprise there. Pretty much all guys are super insecure these days. According to him, his own brother can't even step foot in your house or you're going to cheat with him? At this point, I wouldn't even blame you if you did. It's obvious this man-child you call a husband does not trust you. I could never be with a man who doesn't even trust me. I hope you do consider leaving him for his brother. At least it sounds like the two of you are able to get along together without petty childish drama that your husband brings to the table. I'd also be highly suspecting that his little trips he's going on, he could very well be the one cheating while away and projecting that out onto you. You deserve better, and I hope you find it, whether that's with his brother or just another man who has an ounce of self-esteem and doesn't act like a petulant child. Customer demands TV satellite dish be reinstalled on the ground after roof is replaced, then wonders why his TV won't work. This is a story told to me by a coworker at a satellite TV installation company that I used to work for years ago, and I have since quit. Absolutely horrible company that treated its employees horribly. To help you understand this dilemma, I'm going to lay out some very basic groundwork here on how satellite TV works so that you can understand the dilemma that he was faced with. Context. When we install a satellite dish, we use a special inclinometer to determine whether or not our satellite dish's view will be obstructed. Each region is given a specific azimuth, elevation, and tilt that serves to identify the actual satellite in orbit and to prevent us from installing a non-functioning system. Actual story. With that said, our boss called my coworker to assist with a satellite dish relocation because a customer replaced his roof and they tore the satellite dish off the old roof when the new roof was put on. My coworker arrives and the customer tells him that he would like the satellite dish to be put on a pole outside. He says, "Fine, where would you like the pole mount to be placed?" The customer points to an acre of his heavily wooded backyard and says very sternly, "Put the satellite dish right there beneath the trees and point it that way toward the sky. I don't want to be able to see the satellite dish. It's pretty ugly." He walks over to the spot, all the while knowing this isn't going to work, uses his inclinometer, had to make it look like he tried, and says, "Sir, this isn't going to work here, or anywhere on the ground for the matter. The satellite we are aiming for is past these trees, and your TV won't get signal. It will need to go back on the roof." Customer, "Well, then point it the other way then," he angrily shouts. Technician, "Well, it's not going to—" "How is it not going to work? The sky is open, is it not? Do you just not want to work or what? That's a brand new roof." Additionally, I should also mention that tech drove 1.5 hours for this. The tech was patient and tried to reason with him, but he kept cutting him off before he could explain himself. He would still have 1.5 hours to drive back for a total of 3 hours. He was not getting paid by the drive, only by the job, and the boss rearranged his schedule since he was the closest and one of the few techs to have the proper equipment since the warehouse kept such poor stock. The company essentially did him over and wouldn't have coughed up the money even if the work did not go through. And so he did exactly as the customer said. He placed the satellite dish exactly how the customer wanted it pointed at the sky, and right after that, the technician left. And the customer was happy. Well, happy right until he went to turn on his TV and got the error code, 771, signal loss on satellite. The tech didn't pick up his phone for the customer when he tried calling, and then eventually the boss called and asked, "Why didn't you put the satellite dish on the roof?" Tech, "I tried to explain it to him. I tried reasoning with him. I told him it wouldn't work where he wanted it, but he absolutely insisted it would because of the clear sky. So I gave him what he wanted. The customer is always right." The boss sympathetically says, "Yeah, but you know that's wrong." In the end, the customer's TV was out for the next 2 weeks, and he absolutely deserved every bit of it. From what my coworker told me, the boss didn't hear the end of it from the customer when the customer called in to complain, but my coworker told me that the boss absolutely deserved it because the boss was giving him crap all week. Edit. I should also mention that we get paid by the job. The company wasn't going to compensate him for the time spent setting up a non-functional satellite dish. Neighbor constantly complains about my noise waking up her baby. I've had enough. My garage is about 3 meters away from my neighbor's bedroom where their baby sleeps. I've got a roller door which beeps quietly 4 times within 20 seconds of me arriving home and pushing the button. It's so quiet that at times I can't hear it when sitting in the room adjacent to the garage when my partner comes home. Since my neighbor had her baby, I've made an effort to be more considerate of noise. Despite already soundproofing my rumpus room, I've stopped playing my drums after 6 p.m. I've also declined hosting friends outside in my backyard due to noise. I think I've been more than considerate, but apparently not. I get home from work at 11 p.m. and put my car in the garage. A couple weeks ago, my neighbor approached me and asked if I could wait until the morning to put my car away, but I declined as there have been break-ins to cars on our street lately. My car is also one that is targeted by thieves a lot as parts are expensive, and it's an enthusiast's car. I apologized, but I was firm when telling her that I will not, under any circumstances, leave my car out overnight. I also know that they sleep with their window open that faces my garage, but I thought it would be weird to bring it up and suggest they close the window. I'm also confused as I have an aftermarket exhaust on the car which is louder than the original, but they've said nothing about that. A couple nights ago, I came home to her husband's car blocking my driveway, just enough that I couldn't get my car through. It was kind of useless because I pushed the button before I even reached my driveway, so it beeped anyway. They didn't come out, so I had their car towed, and they haven't done it since. Today, Saturday, I decided to play my drums around lunchtime in my soundproofed rumpus room. You can only hear minimal vibration from the kick from the outside, but it's at the rear of my property and quite far from any neighbors, but they still had something to say. The wife came over and basically said she had put up with my noise for long enough and that she was exhausted due to the kid never sleeping thanks to the noise I make. I was definitely still upset about the driveway blocking situation from the other night, and I snapped a little, telling her that I'd been considerate enough and already made concessions in terms of noise. I said that while it's within my rights to play music up until 10 p.m. in our council, I've cut myself off at 6 p.m. in consideration of her and her kid. I said that from now on, she'll have to get over it because I was done catering to her and her family. Not the jerk. It sounds like you've been very reasonable and you're allowed to live your life. They chose to have the baby. Surely they knew things might wake it up. And you're not supposed to keep things completely silent for the baby sleeping. They need to get used to a normal level of noise while sleeping. Obviously, don't vacuum the room they're in, but a neighbor's garage door is something they should be able to sleep through. Not the jerk. Not that it's a good excuse, but she's probably exhausted, and this is one of those need something to blame kind of things. She's probably fixated on you and your noise because it's something that's right next door and something she can directly attack in a manner of speaking. It sounds as if she's unlucky enough to have one of those babies that just doesn't sleep much or well. That's not your fault though. The nice guy who lied to his date about who he was and really ended up paying for it. Long ago, I was waiting tables and I had a two-top. They looked to be on a date. Both were dressed up. She ordered a salad and he ordered a burger. She cocked her head to the side when he said that, and she said, "I thought you were vegan." He laughed it off, said he was, but that sometimes he splurged. She didn't look happy about that, but said nothing. All I could think of was, awkward. He ordered a Guinness halfway through his meal, and she raised an eyebrow at that too. "Wait a second, you said that you didn't drink either." He laughed it off again, saying he meant harder drinks. Certainly, beer wasn't an issue. I snuck away, but listened to them argue behind a server station. Her. I specifically wrote on my profile that I was a vegan and I didn't drink. Him, waving his hand at her. "One beer isn't an issue. Plus, I haven't had meat in ages, at least a few weeks. Just because you don't doesn't mean your man can't." Her. I was looking for like-minded men, someone who also doesn't eat meat or drink. He cut her off. "You know, I saw that on your profile, but I figured once you met me, you'd be open to it. Once you get to know me, I'm a great guy. You should give me a chance, despite our small differences." Her. So far, 2 important facts you told me about yourself were lies. I got busy and had to go do something. Dang it. When I looked back, the woman was gone. She had pretended to go to the bathroom, found another server, gave him money, and told him to give it to me. Then she fled the restaurant. Her date waited a bit, and then he started looking toward the bathroom to see where she was. I brought the check and had updated it to show the payment she had made. Him, after looking at the bill. She paid for her food? Where'd she go? Me. I think she may have left, sir. He gets angry. What? I shrugged. He got up, went to the bathroom door and knocked on it, calling her name. When nobody came out, he pushed the door open. I was about to tell him to get out of the restroom, but he saw it was empty and returned to the table. Digging for his wallet, he loudly complained about his date ditching him. He started telling the tables around him that his date had been a horrible person and had taken off. He used really mean words. I was shocked and they all looked uncomfortable. When I picked up his credit card to run it, he yelled at me, "Her loss. I make great money and have a big house. I have a boat. Her loss." I dropped his receipt while internally rolling my eyes at him. He had lied to her about who he was and it was her loss? Yeah, okay. Up until then, I had never encountered an r/nice guy before. What a tool. You want my dog? Well, I think it's fairly safe to assume I've lost a couple of friends over this, but it wasn't me who caused it. This weekend, a friend of mine asked me to keep an eye on her 2 kids while she and her hubby went away for the weekend for some couple time. Her mother was initially going to watch the kids, but fell through on short notice. She called me at 3 p.m. on Friday to come over in 3 hours, and my friend knew I probably wasn't doing anything, which was both hurtful and accurate. So I said sure. She's got 2 kids, a daughter who's 8 and a son who's 5. They're good kids for the most part. The boy has a little bit of a snitching problem, and the girl has a sharing problem, but it's 2 days. So I show up Friday after work while my friend gives me the rundown and her husband tells them to behave. The parents leave and it's just me and the kids in the house, and it's immediate pandemonium. The brother snitches on his sister for taking an extra cookie. The sister cries to me that her brother messed with her Switch, and I make the executive decision that they've got too much energy, and if they're tuckered out, they'll hopefully chill. So I ask them to go find their swimsuits, because we're going to the gym, which has a pool and a guest policy. I did let Mom know what we were up to before we left, and asked if it was okay if I brought my dog over. He doesn't shed and he's house trained. She said that was fine. Operation Pool was a great success, though the locker room did get a bit dicey. That's a whole other story. Once everyone was appropriately tired, including me, we made a pit stop on the way back to their house to grab my pooch. He's extremely well behaved and he loves kids, and both kids were immediately all about the Dexter, and the Dexter was all about the kids. Ground rules. No pulling on his fur, and he goes where he wants. Kids kind of struggle with the notion that a dog is not a toy. I obviously kept him out of places where he wasn't supposed to go, but I'm a grown-up, allegedly. Miraculously, after the swim and chasing the dog around the house left the kids too pooped to pop, and both fell asleep watching a Disney film on the TV. After the movie, I woke the kids up to trot off to bed and didn't make them brush their teeth. For the record, the son did indeed yeet me under a bus when Mommy called in the morning. I told the kiddos that if they left their doors open, Dexter might sneak in and give them cuddles. I increased the likelihood of this by sleeping on the couch and not leaving him a spot. He expressed his displeasure with me by flouncing off and going into the son's room to sleep. Great success. Saturday, we went for a hike in the morning, had a nap, and then played ball with the dog, and generally had a pretty chill day. Diffused the sharing issue by explaining to the daughter that the pup has feelings and wants just like any person, and she can't control him that way. She appeared thoughtful, and then immediately started yelling at her brother for hogging the dog again. At least she wasn't mad at the dog. I successfully heated up the casserole Mom had left me for dinner following her carefully laid out instructions, admonished the kids to not give him people food, and was soundly ignored. I did draw the line at a couple morsels from each kid and put my foot down. More than that, and he's gonna get the runs, and nobody wants that. That night, I made sure Sis got a turn by again hogging the couch and also closing the son's door, since he got a turn already. The girl was smug. The boy made me call his mom. Mom wasn't happy that my dog was in her kids' beds. I reminded her that he doesn't shed and he can't smell worse than the kids, and her daughter might burn the house down with us inside it if she doesn't get a turn. Mom accepted defeat. Saturday night was again relatively peaceful, though toothbrushing did happen. Early Sunday morning, I got woken up by having my dog step on me, which is something he's really good at, and he was mad at me for not leaving any room. I made room. Apparently, the girl tried to do something he didn't like, and he noped out of there. She wasn't happy about that, but was appeased by my pain enough to go back to bed. This morning was relatively chill, some more playing with the dog and some team tug of war. And Mom and Dad got back around lunchtime and thanked me for keeping their kids in one piece. The kids said bye to the pup, and there were tears, and I loaded up myself and my dog and went back home to enjoy the relative peace and quiet. Yeah, I wish it ended there. Maybe an hour after we got home, I get a phone call from a very frazzled-sounding mom with kids crying in the background. She says they need my dog now. I'm sorry, what? You don't need a dog? You need my dog? Like, I don't need to come back and visit soon? You just want him? Well, the kids got so attached and they won't stop crying about missing the dog, and her husband don't have time for 2 kids and a puppy and more guilt-inducing word vomit that was having precisely 0 effect on me. Absolutely not. Click. Still getting texts about being reasonable and you have time to train a new dog. 48 hours of free babysitting isn't enough. You want my dog too? Not in this lifetime. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend she can't just take back a replacement item she gave me after the lost item was found? My girlfriend and I had a long debate about this quite a while ago, and it still remains a touchy subject in our relationship. Please weigh in. Situation. My girlfriend lost my volleyball when she borrowed it during one of our routine league nights. She offered to replace it at no cost to me, since she acknowledged the ball going missing was entirely her fault. True to her word, she gifted me a new ball before our next league night. Note, she physically gave the replacement ball to me, and it was now in my possession. It's now my ball. When we got to our league later on, perhaps later that day or the following day, I forget which to be honest, my lost ball had been found by the staff, and my girlfriend handed it back to me. At which point, she also said, "I'm going to take back the other ball now," and went to take it from my bag. I told her it wasn't okay for her to do that and challenged her on that point. Her point of view. According to her, as I was no longer missing my original ball, so it was okay for her to take back the replacement ball. She believes that by returning my original ball, the debt is settled, and since the replacement was no longer necessary for me to possess, it was hers to keep now as she had paid for it. My point of view. Once you give something to someone, you no longer have ownership of said item, as the ownership has been transferred over to the recipient. Therefore, what happens with that item from that point on is not for the giver to decide. I believe that for her to reassume ownership of something she has given away to be a huge transgression on her part. Taking back a gift is a big no-no in my eyes. My gripe is that I feel like she should have asked for the replacement ball back rather than have assumed ownership of it outright. If I wanted to donate the ball, or heck, even just keep it for myself, I feel it would have been my prerogative to do so, not hers. Now to clarify. 1. As she had given me the ball as a replacement and the original ball had been found, I feel the morally correct thing for me to do would have been to offer the replacement ball back to her, as a token of her generosity in the first place. However, she had robbed me of this opportunity by deciding to take back the replacement ball before I could offer it back to her. 2. If she had purchased it but had not yet physically given it to me before returning my original ball, I feel she would have been within her rights to keep the replacement, as ownership hadn't been transferred over to me through the act of giving. So, am I the jerk? Update. My girlfriend and I are currently reading the comments together, and we're having an absolute laugh. We didn't anticipate such a high volume of responses, over 1,000 at this point. She feels validated. There were definitely lots of points for us, and me in particular, to reflect on. I can't get back to everybody, but I will be responding to as many as I can in the next few days. Also, not that it matters much, but the volleyball is worth 90 Canadian dollars. To those mentioning autism or mental health issues, I've already had some concerns over being on the spectrum before. Categories and the pedantics are things I worry and stress about very often, much more than those around me. Thank you for pointing that out and making room for this in the conversation. Perhaps this is worth me looking into further. You're the jerk. This relationship sounds exhausting. You're the jerk for making me read The Tale of the Volleyball, A Trial in 3 Acts. And you're wrong, obviously. Your item was lost, it was found. You get your old item back. Everyone's happy, except you apparently. This isn't like if you ordered something on Amazon, it got lost, they sent you a replacement, and your original item came, and they told you to keep both. This is your girlfriend, though maybe not for long. I'm extremely impressed you read that in its entirety. I only got through the first couple of paragraphs and vaguely skimmed the rest of the saga. Something, I'm keeping all the toys and you can't have any, something. OP, I cannot imagine how tedious you must be in real life. Your poor girlfriend must feel like she's presenting a defense before the Supreme Court every time she makes the slightest error. Your girlfriend already indemnified you by replacing your volleyball with one of equal value. Indemnification does not equal excess. However, you don't get to earn something on top of the replacement, which you would if you kept both balls. You're the jerk. Your girlfriend made a mistake, immediately rectified the situation, and made the very reasonable assumption she'd get to have the excess, the second ball, since it was not needed by you. Your argument isn't logically sound. You know someone's a high-level Redditor when they're using words like indemnification. Oh, come on, Karen. Not everyone can be uncultured swine like us. Am I the jerk for not allowing my neighbor to use my driveway? I, 34 female, have been living in my current house for about 4 years. It's a lovely neighborhood, and I generally have a great relationship with my neighbors. However, there's one neighbor, Dave, 45 male, who has been causing some issues lately, and I need some perspective on whether or not I'm the jerk here. Dave and his family moved into the house next door about a year ago. They have a narrow driveway that can fit only one car, and their house doesn't have much street parking available. This hasn't been a problem until recently, when Dave started hosting large gatherings at his house. During these gatherings, Dave's guests would park their cars on the street, which would quickly become overcrowded. As a result, some of his guests started using my driveway without asking for permission. Initially, I let it slide because I didn't want to cause any conflict. However, it began happening more frequently, and on a few occasions, I'd be unable to move my own car when I had to go to work or leave for my own business, forcing me to go to Dave's house and play a guessing game for someone to move their car. I decided to address the issue with Dave, explaining that I didn't mind his guests occasionally using my driveway, but I would appreciate it if he could ask for permission first. Dave seemed understanding and apologized for the inconvenience. However, the situation didn't improve. Dave continued to host gatherings, and his guests continued to use my driveway without permission. I decided to take matters into my own hands and placed a no parking sign in my driveway, along with a polite note asking Dave's guests to respect my property, also with a warning that I'd have their vehicles towed. Last weekend, Dave hosted another party, and his guests were forced to find alternative parking due to the sign. Dave confronted me, saying I was being unreasonable and that I should be more accommodating to his guests. He argued that it was just for a few hours and that I was creating unnecessary tension in the neighborhood. I stood my ground, explaining that I had tried to address the issue politely and that my driveway is my private property. I added that he should have respected my request for permission and made better arrangements for his guests' parking. Ever since then, me and Dave have not spoken to each other, with him and his family most of the time shooting me a bad look. So, am I the jerk for not allowing my neighbor to use my driveway for his guests, despite having tried to address the issue politely? Your whole question boils down to, am I the jerk for wanting to be able to go to work, run errands, and leave in case of an emergency, even if it might inconvenience someone attending a party I wasn't invited to? No, you are not the jerk for not wanting to be stuck at your house when a neighbor hosts parties you weren't invited to. Am I the jerk for refusing to get in the car with my mom? I'm 28, female, 33 weeks pregnant, high risk, and on modified bed rest. I can still do moderate exercises and run errands, but mostly I'm meant to be sitting with my feet up all day so I don't get sick again. My doctor okayed me to continue doing my mile walks, so my mom and I went to our local park that had a walking path. She drove her car. We got about 1/8 mile from the car, and I mentioned thinking of changing the name I'd picked for the baby. It's been an issue between her and I. I had settled on a name, but in the last couple of weeks, it began to feel like the wrong name. I've been trying out a few names. She's frustrated by my inability to pick one. Anyway, I mentioned this wanting to change the name, and she had a visceral reaction. She growled, threw her hands in the air, yelled at me, and turned around and started storming off. I didn't realize what she was doing, so I just stood there and watched. I thought she was going to turn and come back. Instead, she stormed to the car, got in, and drove away. Even if I had realized what she was doing, I couldn't have caught up with her. I can only waddle these days. I walked back to the parking lot, thinking she was coming back and just messing with me, but 5 minutes passed and she was still gone. My leggings don't have pockets, so I didn't have my phone with me. I went inside the community center, and fortunately, there were some ladies setting up for something, and I asked if I could borrow a cell phone. I figured my mom wouldn't answer, so I called my grandfather, who lives 10 minutes from the park. He said he'd be right there to get me. About the time my granddad parked, my mom pulled back into the lot. She asked me why I called my grandfather instead of her, and I told her that she left me in a park without a cell phone. So I borrowed someone's and called the only number I had memorized that I knew would pick me up. Mom told my granddad she was sorry we had bothered him and that she'd take me home. I told her I wasn't getting in the car with her and she was crazy if she thought I was. She asked why, and I told her, "You left your 8.5-month high-risk pregnant daughter in a park without a cell phone on an 85-degree day over something as stupid as naming a baby that isn't even due for another 7 weeks. She won't even know her own name for months. It literally doesn't even matter yet, but you let it become a whole drama." My granddad drove me home. He gave my mom a stern talking to when we got there. Mom is now walking around acting like she's the victim because I embarrassed her. She said I should have just got in the car with her. She's only offered a half-attempted apology, but it was more of a "sorry you feel the way you do" apology and not a real one. She says I'm overreacting. I'm writing this with the intent of showing her, so I'll accept whatever judgment comes my way. If I overreacted, I want to know it. Edit. She did not know that I didn't have my phone. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. If your mom flips out this much before the baby is born, think long and hard on if you want to deal with that and more when the baby's coming and after it's born, and decide if you want that in you and your baby's life. Am I the jerk for telling my coworker to stop using my personal belongings? So I, 28 female, have been working at this small software company for about 3 years now, and I genuinely love my job. I have great coworkers and the work environment is generally positive. However, there's this one coworker, let's call her Sarah. She's 32, who has been increasingly crossing boundaries. A bit of background. Sarah joined the company around a year ago, and we were initially friendly. We would have lunch together occasionally and chat about random things. I didn't think much of it, and it seemed like a normal office friendship. However, over time, I noticed that Sarah had started to use my belongings without asking for permission. For example, she would take my stapler, pens, or even my phone charger without asking. At first, I brushed it off as her just being forgetful and not realizing that these were my personal items. I tried to be understanding and not let it bother me. But then, things started to escalate. One day, I brought in a special lunch I had prepared as a treat for myself. It was a dish that my grandmother used to make for me, and it had a lot of sentimental value. I had placed it in the fridge with a note clearly stating it was mine. When lunchtime came around, I discovered that Sarah had taken and eaten my lunch. I confronted her and she apologized, claiming that she thought it was meant for the whole office to share. I didn't buy it, but I let it go to avoid causing a scene. Over the next few months, Sarah's behavior continued to worsen. She began using my personal laptop without asking, even though we all have our own work computers. She would also use my coffee mug and other personal items, despite me having my name on them. I tried to address it politely and asked her to stop, but she would just laugh it off and say she didn't mean any harm. Finally, I reached my breaking point last week. I had bought a new, expensive pair of headphones to use at work, and I had left them on my desk overnight. When I arrived the next day, I found Sarah using them at her desk. I was furious and asked her to hand them over immediately. She tried to play it off as a joke, but I had enough. I told her that it was not funny and that she needed to stop using my personal belongings without permission. I said it was disrespectful and a violation of my privacy. The rest of the office heard the commotion, and some of my coworkers agreed with me, while others said I was overreacting and should let it go. Sarah hasn't spoken to me since, and the atmosphere has become tense. A few coworkers have even suggested that I owe Sarah an apology for embarrassing her in front of everyone. So, am I the jerk for telling my coworker to stop using my personal belongings? Not the jerk. The headphones and lunch were yours and not hers. While I would argue using a stapler isn't harmful, it just adds to everything else. What is most irritating about her seems to be she tries to laugh it off and carry on like she hasn't done anything wrong. Don't apologize. Wait for her to do that. Not the jerk. Speak to your manager and/or HR. The stapler and even the charger are kind of reasonable, but the lunch, your personal laptop, and your headphones are completely out of order. Am I the jerk for not giving up my office to be my wife's craft room? I recently brought this issue up with a few friends of mine, and after disagreeing on whether I was in the wrong, suggested I post here. Some backstory. I, 25 male, met my wife, 26 female, 6 years ago during college. We got married after dating for 2 years because of visa issues on her side. Shortly after, I inherited the house we live in now from my grandparents. Ever since then, we've lived here together. I started a new job last year that allowed me to work from home most days. Soon after, I turned our main guest room into my office. It's just slightly smaller than our master, but has no ensuite. I admit I could have moved into one of the smaller rooms, but was somewhat excited to have my own space complete with a 3-monitor desk setup, a comfy couch, and several shelves of figurines I've collected and painted. As part of my job, coding, I often pace around the room for ideas, and looking at these shelves, that take up about half the room, gives me a lot of joy. Recently, my wife, who is a very creative person and has dozens of crafty hobbies that she jumps in between, outgrew her craft room that we set up soon after moving here. It's about half the size of our current office. We also have both a large guest bedroom and another similar size small room that we currently use mostly as storage. I recommended she use the small room to set up a secondary desk and storage. I figured this could be nice since she often has several projects going on at once and would have to store one away for the others. She, however, insists that a bigger room would be the only real choice. Whilst at first I tried to dissuade her from using the guest room, since there's no way we can cram all the furniture in one of the small rooms, and I'm also worried about when we have guests over and their comfort. She seemed very happy with the decision, however, yesterday insisted that I move my office into one of the smaller rooms and let her have my current room so that our guests wouldn't have to sleep in a small space. I disagreed vehemently since I spent 50 hours a week in my office and have spent countless hours decorating it the exact way I wanted it. I also actually use the extra space to be more effective and focused. Obviously, now my wife is very angry with me and says the only thing that will calm her down is if I give her the bigger room. I don't think this is something I can budge on. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You work 50 hours a week in the room. Guests would sleep there infrequently, and I don't know how many hours a week your wife would spend on her hobby. Not the jerk. This is your workspace for your income. She's being unreasonable. I called the police on my neighbor after she keyed my car because of the books that I write. I'm a single woman in my early 30s, making my living writing and self-publishing fiction novels. The genre I write has a majority of the plot being steamy, so I typically don't tell people what I write, but I do tell them I write books for a living under a pen name, and if you're questioning my writing abilities, I have an editor to correct my mistakes. I'm not hiding it per se, but I'm not telling everyone I meet what I do for a living, and none of my neighbors knew, only a bunch of friends. I live in a house alone. Pretty much all of my neighbors are either young families or retired couples. My next door neighbor is a young couple. We've been polite to each other, but haven't been close or anything. Lately, the husband, let's call him Roger, became very friendly towards me, which I tried to ignore, but he's been getting too flirty for my liking, and I started to avoid him. They had a barbecue over the bank holiday weekend, and I was taking rubbish out to put in my bin. Roger looked at me, waved hi, and whispered something to his friend, and they both watched me very carefully, which was incredibly creepy. On my way through my garden, I saw Roger's wife, Dahlia, leaving the house with her friend, and they both looked at me with disgust and whispered something to each other. It was weird, and I hurried back inside. The next morning, I found some religious leaflets put through my letterbox. They were just printed on normal printer paper and warning about sinful behavior and going to heck, etc. Threw them away, but kept finding similar leaflets put through my letterbox for the next week. Since I'm working from home, I decided to see who's leaving these leaflets, and to my surprise, it was Dahlia. I decided to confront her and ask her to stop putting religious leaflets through my door. Despite me being polite, she was not happy. She told me that I should rethink my life because what I write is disgusting. It's pretty vanilla. And she found her husband secretly reading it at night. She kept going on and on how I'm going to heck, how I have no morals, etc. Well, I told her to stay away from me and discuss this with her husband, and I closed the door in her face. Don't know who, but someone told them what I do for a living. A day later, I found an insult painted on my door. A few days later, I caught her keying my car. She was almost done with another insult. Well, I called the police on her, and since I installed cameras after this incident. She's been taken to court over keying my car. I talked to my other neighbor. She asked about the police, about it, and she told me that I went overboard, that Dahlia was clearly insecure, but she's a lovely woman and a great mother, and I should have talked to her instead of calling the police and given her a chance to change her behavior. Am I the jerk for calling the police and not giving Dahlia a chance? If she's keying your car and painting rude names on your door, she is not a lovely woman. Just because she doesn't like what you write doesn't give her the right to destroy your property. It appears that the behavior was escalating, so getting the police involved was necessary. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for saying I'm not going to take care of my pregnant girlfriend's baby when he's born? I met my girlfriend several months ago. On our, fourth date, she told me that she was pregnant from her ex. I've been told by friends and family that I should have left at that point, but I was really dumb and really desperate at that time because it was my first relationship, so I wasn't really thinking and I went along with the relationship with her. I loved her. She was like a perfect match for me and other stuff. However, it wasn't until this month that things started to be a big problem. My girlfriend started talking to me about paying for some baby stuff and what her expectation was for me once the baby was born. We originally had an agreement that it was only going to be her and her ex. He's still around, he's not a deadbeat, that would be taking care of the baby. However, she told me recently that her ex was out of a job and doesn't even have a car and is tight on money. So she expects me to help pay for the stuff that she needs, like diapers, baby clothes, and whatever. I said, forget that. I did not agree to that. I might change a diaper a couple of times or feed him once or twice, but I'm not going to be fully taking care of him. What on earth? Especially not spending money on baby stuff. I barely have money myself. I'm 19 years old, by the way. She got mad because I said I wasn't going to help her buy baby things and help her take care of the baby after he's born. This was a big argument that lasted for a long time. Am I the jerk here? I'm going to probably go against the grain here, but I'm going with not the jerk. As a single mom, I don't expect anyone to step up and care for my kid. That's mine and her father's job. I welcome positive male role models in her life, and if they want to do extra for her, then I'm extremely grateful for those actions. But I absolutely do not expect them to fund any part of her life or take on a parent role. Yep, not the jerk. OP, she may have really liked you, but she was also looking for someone to take her deadbeat ex's place. And yes, he is a deadbeat, no matter what he says he's going to do. When the baby is born, your girlfriend will stop being available to you and will be full-time taking care of a newborn baby. If you stick around, you will be pulled into sharing responsibility. And as soon as you've established a pattern of taking responsibility for the kid, you can, in some states in the US, not sure where you are, be made legally responsible for child support even if you leave. You're going to essentially lose your girlfriend to her baby, and you're going to risk being sucked into child support for life if you stick around. Do both of you a favor and get out of her life. You're the jerk. Look, if you ain't man enough to be a father to that baby, then quit wasting this girl's time. You make it very clear that you only want her for one reason, and that reason is not to help her with anything important in her life. I've dealt with plenty of guys like you until I finally found the right one who didn't mind that I have 4 kids with different dads. My new man provides for all of us because he is a real man who makes real money. He also agreed to not marry me on paper so that I can stay getting my benefits for me and my kids. He even doesn't mind me getting with some of my exes now and then because he is secure in our relationship. I know he ain't happy about it, but he knows it's important to me, so he doesn't try to stop me. He respects my strong independence and never tries to mansplain anything to me. Let this girl go so she can find a real man, cause boy, you ain't cutting it. Won't replace a brand new broken lawnmower, but will let me return and reorder? Okay. So I bought a riding lawnmower a few years ago from a big home store. I paid for delivery, and upon said delivery, it didn't start. The delivery truck had left by the time I had gotten gas in it and figured this out, so I called the store. I explained that my brand new, just delivered today lawnmower was not starting, and immediately the person on the phone asked me if I purchased the extended warranty. I hadn't, so they told me that it would cost $100 to have them come get the lawnmower, and then however much more the repairs were. Mind you, it was brand new. In my mind, they should bring me a new one to replace the one that didn't work upon delivery. No matter how much I argued, this worker was sticking to their story. I quickly changed my tactic and asked what the return policy was. As long as a return was initiated within 30 days, I could have a full refund, including the cost of delivery, and the store would come pick up the lawnmower for me at no additional cost. So I pointed out that the store wouldn't replace my non-working item by taking one trip to my house to pick up the non-working one and bring me one that worked, and instead would make 2 trips to pick up the one that didn't work and then bring me the new one I purchased the second time as a totally different transaction? The worker said yes, and when I tried to point out how that made no sense, he didn't want to hear it. So right then and there, I initiated a refund. I then immediately ordered a new one and had him set up the delivery date. After that date was set, we had to schedule the date for pickup of the old mower, and I made myself unavailable for any date other than the delivery date for the new one. So even though he had insisted they wouldn't just bring me a replacement mower and pick up the first one, they were now doing just that, but with the additional paperwork of processing a return and additional paperwork for delivery of the new mower. The manager called me later that day to apologize for the hassle, and they ended up waiving my delivery fee. I worked at a Lowe's in customer service. It's atrocious, but I can confirm that this type of crap is common. Most systems aren't set up to process what you need done. We literally had to return and then sell a new one to set up delivery. Quite often, we'd set up an exchange with a delivery and then just swap out the items. Odds are that person was never trained for an exchange sale. 90% of the store I worked at wasn't trained on doing one. Heck, a good 90% weren't trained to do a return at all. Am I the jerk for deciding to separate our finances just because my wife refused to buy a pair of earrings for my daughter? My wife and I have one daughter from a previous marriage each. Mine is called Penn, she's 15, and hers is Amy, she's 17. We've been married for 10 years now. Our finances are joint because we don't care for money. She makes $70,000 to $80,000 and I make $180K to $200K per year. She's in charge of our finances. My wife has the weird fixation on having the kids earn their stuff, and while I agree, both of our daughters are well-behaved, good students, and kind, I don't see why they have to earn every single thing daily. For example, if my daughter is working in the kitchen at night and goes to sleep without putting her laptop away because she'll work again in the morning, then my wife decides that she can't eat anything sweet that day. I voiced, with better words, that I find it stupid. Same goes for her daughter. She's prone to forget things easily, and if she doesn't remember to put this or that thing away, my wife removes her phone or tablet. Yesterday was my day off, and I stayed back home resting while my wife and our kids went out to buy my mother-in-law a Mother's Day gift. Around 5 p.m., my daughter came to my room and said that my wife bought Amy a necklace, and when she asked for a pair of earrings she loved, my wife refused because the night before she stayed up until late watching Netflix when she knows she's not supposed to. This isn't the first time my wife refuses to buy my daughter things, and honestly, it boils my blood. My daughter is a really good kid. I work hard to make sure my family has every or most of the things they want just for my wife to tell them no because they are kids being kids. When my wife came into our room, I was honest. I said that her rule was utterly stupid and I was done putting up with that I don't particularly like her buying one thing for her daughter while the other had nothing, and that until she accepts to attend therapy with me and fix the problem, our money will be taken care of separately, and the joint account will be for the house and emergency matters only. This means she now has to pay half of the utilities and some other things. She didn't like it because her money will be cut short, and implied I was financially mistreating her by doing this over a pair of earrings. She went to her parents, and my father-in-law called me soon after. He said I was a jerk and that it was my obligation to provide for my family. ETA, I might not have explained myself. I'm still paying most of our joint expenses, like 60 to 70%, but before this, my wife kept almost all her money to herself and only put toward the emergency fund we set. Still, I put a bigger amount. She's not happy about us separating our finances because this means she has to contribute to the house now, and she'll have less money for her daughter's college fund and her fun. ETA 2. Thanks for all your replies and comments. I'll try to read all of them and we'll be answering some. I also want to thank you for all of your advice. My wife still refuses to do therapy, and as some of you said, this will be my hill to die on. If she doesn't agree by next Wednesday, I'm sure we will divorce. Someone also asked for our ages. I'm 36, male, and she's 45, female. Karen has an emotional affair on her husband and leaves him. I give her a piece of my mind. Hello all. It's been rough with my only daughter as of late. My husband and I, both of us are 55, we have one daughter who's 30. We have been married coming up on 32 years. My daughter was in a long relationship and married for approximately 9 years, and for a long time I thought that it was a good relationship. When out of nowhere around 3 years ago, she decided to divorce her ex-husband. We were told it was a mutual decision, but that ultimately he wasn't the greatest partner and there were many things that she was not satisfied with in their relationship. So she wanted to leave, and we supported her decision. About a year after the divorce, she introduced us to her new boyfriend, and while my husband and I thought it may be a bit early to date, we decided to continue to support her and meet him. He was, and is, a very charming man who treats our daughter wonderfully, and you can tell that she's extremely happy. Now onto the argument. Recently, we were talking with one of our daughter's friends who was visiting our town, and were discussing our daughter's job and her wonderful boyfriend. Her friend in the conversation made a comment about how they were lucky to be in the same orientation together when they started work. As soon as she saw our confused faces, she gave us the full story, as she realized we hadn't been given it. Our daughter had told us while her and her boyfriend worked for the same employer, they didn't meet until after the divorce. We pressed the friend for more information, and she begrudgingly told us that our daughter and her boyfriend had met during orientation at work while our daughter was going through her marital issues. This led to them becoming closer and her filing for divorce from her ex-husband about a year later. So later that day, I asked to have a conversation with my daughter, and I brought up what her friend had told us. She turned white as snow and basically confirmed her friend's story, but reiterated that there was no physical cheating. I told her that physical cheating was not the only way that you could hurt someone, and that it appeared that she had emotionally cheated on her ex-husband. He may not have been the greatest person, but it didn't excuse her actions. I told her that I was disappointed in her, and while I supported her leaving a bad marriage, that I couldn't look at her and her boyfriend the same in this new light in regards to cheating. I still love her and will treat her boyfriend with respect, but it is definitely something I have a hard time looking past. She got angry with me for not continuing to support her in her journey beyond divorce. Am I the jerk? Based on how judgmental you come across in this post, it's no wonder your daughter doesn't open up and talk to you about most things. It sounds like she never truly confided in you with her marital issues, especially since you were shocked when she went to get a divorce. Out of nowhere, around 3 years ago, she decided to divorce her ex-husband. That being said, you have no idea how bad things were for her or what she was really going through leading up to that. And if she had a coworker that she could confide in and that supported her, that's great. She deserves to have someone there who she could. Marriages end long before the divorce is even requested most of the time. And if that friendship and support turned into something more after, then good for her. You're her mother. You can be disappointed and think you know better all you want. But pulling your support from her and talking down to a grown adult? You're the jerk. She may be your kid, but she isn't a kid anymore. It's her life, and she deserves to be happy. You're the jerk. She divorced him for a reason. It's not like she strung her ex along. She left him. And then a whole year later, she got with her current boyfriend. Wow. Just wow. You're the jerk. 1. You think dating someone new a year after a divorce is somehow too soon? What? 2. You admit that you know that your daughter had marital issues before she met this new guy, yet you've drawn the conclusion that he was somehow a part of her filing for divorce because she was emotionally cheating on her husband. Again, what? 3. You concede her husband was a bad partner while omitting any information on why or how he was a bad partner, but then said it didn't excuse her actions. What actions does she need to excuse, OP? Talking to a new friend who happens to be male? You claim you support her choice to leave a bad marriage. Did it not occur to you, OP, that your daughter filed for divorce when she met a man who, as a friend, treated her with the respect and care that she had always wanted from her husband but had never gotten? Did it occur to you that maybe meeting him showed her that she didn't have to settle for what she had been living with? She clearly lied to you about it because she knew this is how you'd react. Are you even disappointed with your daughter, OP? Are you sure the disappointment isn't with yourself? Not the jerk. Don't quote me on this, but it appears that all of the ladies here on Reddit don't see any sort of problem with meeting a guy at work that you hit it off with, having an emotional affair on your husband, then leaving him so you can be happy with your affair partner. Haha, you know her poor husband is paying alimony, paying child support if they had any kids, and probably trying to hang on for dear life because the woman he thought he'd be spending the rest of his life with turned out to be a fluke. I feel bad for the guys who end up marrying all of you. Till death do us part? Yeah, right. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know. If only I had a job I could go to, maybe I'd meet a man whose head didn't look like a balloon. Am I the jerk for telling my husband the nanny is in charge? I want to preface this by saying that I'm aware this is a very privileged issue, but I'm just trying to get some perspective on my opinion. My husband and I have 3 kids that are 10 months, 3 years, and 6 years old. My husband has a high-profile job, and it means he's gone often. I work a regular 9 to 5. We originally used daycare for our oldest, but my middle was born right when lockdown started, so we hired a nanny. She originally worked when I did, but by the time the baby came around, I was very overwhelmed doing bath and bedtime on my own, on top of developing postpartum depression. After a breakdown, we spoke with the nanny and she agreed to adjust her hours, so she's helping me with dinner, bath, and bedtime. We've gotten close over the past 6 months doing this. In many ways, she's become like a third parent to the kids. She's so good with them. We've created a routine that works well. I tend to the baby during bath and bed. She handles the other two. It's a nice rhythm, and my mental health has gotten so much better. My husband isn't traveling all the time, but most nights, he isn't even home for dinner and bedtime. He will help me weekends that he's home, but because he's gone so often, he's reluctant to be firm with the kids. There are times he's come home when our nanny is there. He tries to help her with bath and bedtime, but allows the boys to roughhouse, lets them break the routine, and it seriously throws them off and delays bedtime. My nanny shared with me that she feels awkward. Obviously, she doesn't want to undermine her employer, but it just makes her job harder. But my husband also doesn't want her to go home when he arrives, as he says he can't handle it alone. I told him if that's the case, then he needs to defer to the nanny and follow her lead. She knows our boys best, and she has to deal with the aftermath when they don't listen and give her a hard time. My husband feels that she's just an employee and he's the dad. His salary does pay for her, however, I don't feel this is fair to her. I told him he either follows her lead for bedtime and bath time or he doesn't help at all. He told me I'm allowing the nanny to take over and replace him. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I'm so angry reading these responses. Your husband doesn't want to parent. Your husband wants to be a fun-time uncle who comes in, riles everyone up, dishes out sweets, makes sure they don't have their bedtimes, and then dips out when the kids start having unpleasant reactions to the disruption. These "you're the jerk" comments are unhinged and blatantly jerks. Dads also have to parent. It is completely reasonable if the only partner doing any parenting puts their foot down on an unacceptable behavior partner. Edit, because I'm feeling salty on OP's behalf. Goodness, you are all jerks. Why does dad always get to be the fun time guy and mom always have to be the downer doing the actual parenting? This is a huge problem in society. You're sitting here perpetuating a bad system as if it's good for the kids. You know what is really good for kids is having a father who's an active partner in parenting. It's also completely false that kids won't recognize as they grow that their dad didn't try with them to actually be present in their lives. When they look back as adults, it's going to be mom they respect. Mom who provided this safe, healthy environment for them to grow up in. Agreed. Dad's gone all the time, so when he's home, he wants to be seen as the fun friend, not the parent. The nanny either stays as he requests and he follows her routine, or the nanny leaves and he deals with the crap part of parenting, bath and bedtimes, etc., while keeping the kids on their routine. Otherwise, eventually they'll lose the nanny, and the only loser there is going to be is mom having to deal with all of the crap herself when dad's gone. Not the jerk. Ignore the aggrieved men in the comments. If your husband wants to help with bedtime, then he needs to actually help with the bedtime, not make it harder than it needs to be, or else he needs to do it alone and deal with the consequences of riling the boys up. Not the jerk. As their dad, it's his job to make sure they're healthy and happy, and sticking to their routine is the best way of doing that, aside from special occasions, of course. Either he needs the nanny there or he doesn't, but he can't insist she stay and then make her job worse. I'm sure at his high-profile job, he would immediately sack someone who interfered with his ability to competently perform his duties. If he wants to goof off with the kids, let him make time for them that isn't at bedtime. You're the jerk. Your husband is a high-profile man who worked hard to provide for you and the kids. He may manage his job well, but his family is another story. Once he began losing control and letting you make all the rules and telling him how it was going to go, that's when he lost the future that he could have had with a great family. We as fathers have to lead our families with a strong yet loving demeanor. I know nobody here will agree with that, but hey, maybe that's why you guys have all the issues you do. You think you can figure out this world all on your own. Well, good luck with that. As for me, I put my faith in my Heavenly Father and I follow His word. Am I the jerk for telling my wife to mind her own business? My wife, 37 female, and I, 38 male, moved to a new neighborhood about 3 years ago with our 2 kids who are 8 and 6. Our neighbors across the street have 2 kids who are 9 and 7 that our kids quickly became friends with. We would hang out with the parents as well, and my wife became close friends with the mom. The dad and I got along fine, but never got as close as my wife and the mother. Unfortunately, about a year ago, the parents separated and the mom filed for divorce. Apparently, the dad had an affair. The mom moved out as the house was owned by the dad before they got married. She took the kids with her. According to my wife, the mom tried to get full custody of the kids, but the dad asked for and was granted partial custody. So he has the kids 3 weekends a month. The rest of the time, they stay with their mom. I've only very briefly talked with the dad about the whole thing, as he obviously feels a lot of shame about the affair, and we aren't close enough for me to feel I can ask deep questions about it. The kids all still play together when they can. I noticed my wife would make it a point to make sure our kids invited them over to our house. I also noticed that my wife was asking the neighbor kids some pretty odd and honestly rather intrusive questions about their dad, like if he has friends over at his house when they are there, what he feeds them, what rules he has at home, do they feel safe there, etc. This past weekend, the kids were at our house and stayed over for dinner, and my wife asked the kids if they like hanging out with their dad or mom more. I cut in before the kids could answer, and I changed the subject to watching a movie after dinner. As my wife and I were cleaning up, I asked her what all the questions were about. She said that her friend is still trying to get full custody of their kids, and she asked my wife if she would keep an eye out for anything that she could use to build the case against the dad. I was shocked. I told her that's none of her business, and she needs to stay out of it. I told her it seems like her friend is still upset about the affair and is using that anger as justification to try and take the kids away from their father. I told her that neither of us have ever seen a single thing to indicate that this guy is a bad father. Sure, he had an affair, and that makes him a bad husband, but that has zero influence on his ability to be a good, loving father. I told her what her friend asked her to do was gross, and the fact that she's going along with it is something that I strongly disagree with. I told her she needs to mind her own business. She said she's just trying to look out for her friend, and she's trying to make sure that the kids end up in a situation that is best for them. I told her that essentially spying on our neighbor is not her responsibility, and she's definitely in the wrong for asking the kids the kind of questions that she is. She feels she's completely justified, but I do not. Not the jerk. Putting the kids in the middle and using them as a weapon to get revenge on the father is not what is best for them, even if he is a jerk. Not the jerk. But you should remind your wife that in her quest to help her friend remove the kids from their dad, she's causing parental alienation. The dad is going to eventually figure it out because the kids are going to answer honestly about the questions and conversations. Whatever information your wife gets and passes along to her friend is going to come out in a custody hearing. Your wife would potentially be called to testify that she was the one who asked the questions or obtained the information. The dad would potentially have grounds to sue your wife, and her friend would lose custody or custody time for parental alienation. Your wife's mission is going to negatively affect her family because your kids are going to be upset when they lose their friends because the father won't let them be around your wife when he figures out what she's doing, and you potentially face legal bills if the dad decides to sue your wife. Even if he loses, you still have to pay a lawyer to represent your wife. Your wife doesn't think there are any ramifications for her or you or your kids, and there are serious ones. Your wife is obsessed with helping her friend and is willing to risk her own family's well-being to do it. She needs therapy. Am I the jerk for not letting my daughter miss out on stuff just because her stepsister doesn't get to go too? My husband has a daughter from a previous relationship, Maddie, who's 15. Before I even met my husband, Maddie's mother moved abroad. Maddie decided to go live with her. My husband and I have been married for 10 years, and we have an 8-year-old daughter, Abby. Maddie visits us for the whole summer and 2 weeks in the winter. We go to her when Abby is on spring break. We obviously save big family trips for when Maddie is with us. Same with any other once-in-a-lifetime event. However, my husband is consistently reluctant to do pretty much anything without Maddie. I tried to be patient, but it feels like we can't do anything throughout the year until she gets there. An example, we live near a water park. We have season passes and take Maddie all throughout the summer, but my husband refuses to go until Maddie comes to stay with us, and he doesn't want Abby to go as it's unfair. I've tried discussing this with him, but he won't budge. Sometimes I win him over, but then he complains the entire time that Maddie isn't there. Abby loves Taylor Swift, who was going to be in the area for a limited time and before Maddie would arrive. My mom somehow scored us tickets, and Abby was so excited. My husband said it wasn't fair because Maddie also loves Taylor Swift and she doesn't get to go. I said I'd take both girls to another concert during the summer as there's going to be a few other artists that I know Maddie likes in the area. My husband said that it still isn't fair and tried to ban Abby from going. Because I know it will be asked, it's not possible for Maddie to fly out for the concert. She still has school and important exams that cannot be missed. I put my foot down and said that life isn't always going to be fair. Maddie lives in another country. She's going to miss out on things. It's not fair to ask Abby to give up fun opportunities because Maddie can't come. I pointed out that Maddie gets to do fun things with her mom and Abby isn't there, which I think is completely fair. My husband said that's different because his ex isn't Abby's mom, but he's Maddie's dad. Eventually, he could see I wasn't going to give up and said yes to the concert. My mom, Abby, and I attended, and we had a great time. It was Abby's first concert, and she loved it. My husband says I bullied him into this, and that if Maddie didn't get to go, Abby shouldn't either. Maddie is disappointed she didn't get to go, but she seems happy for her sister. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. The longer this behavior continues, Abby will start to feel like Maddie is more important to their dad. He's trying so hard to make sure Maddie doesn't miss out that he's making Abby miss out. Maddie has her life with her mom, plus her life with her dad. And what? Abby is supposed to sit around and put parts of her life on hold? Missing out on experiences and chances to learn and grow in the meantime? Don't think so. Your husband needs to reassess how he's handling things, or this could really harm Abby's future relationship with both him and her sister. So, you want to be informed about every customer transaction? Bet. A few years back, I used to work retail at a brick-and-mortar shop owned by a guy that, well, let's just say that if we left him alone, the place would fall apart within minutes. There was myself, 2 other associates, and 2 assistant managers, one of whom bought the business out, turned it into an online shop, and is doing pretty well for himself. But I digress. Said owner had no clue how our inventory system worked, let alone our POS system. But he absolutely insisted that he knew everything about the place inside and out, and threatened you with unemployment whenever things didn't go his way. One day, I called his bluff and walked. Not 30 minutes later, while I was sitting in a nearby park, did he call me, begging for me to come back. Squeezed a sizable raise out of him in the process. This know-it-all owner was so convinced of his hype that he insisted and demanded that we call him after every customer transaction, go over what was said so he could tell us we were wrong, even after upselling and setting up a delivery account. Mind you, this is in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, where it's busy for roughly 5 out of the 8 hours during any given shift. Cue the malicious compliance. Despite a line of customers at my register, I had to stop things, pick up the phone, and make the call, all while my line of customers, and what would be typical New York levels of patience, would drop their stuff and walk out. The ones that stuck around waited the 5, maybe 10 minutes each phone call. It got so bad at one point, one of my regulars grabbed the receiver and proceeded to lay into know-it-all owner about how he's losing business because of his crazy policy. Owner dug in his heels though, bless his heart, and insisted that things be done his way. All right, bet. I tried to keep the conversations receiver only. Now it's been upgraded to speakerphone. Now everyone in the store, and I do mean everyone, can hear how much of a colossal jerk he was. This business that was once about $5,000 a day in in-store sales dropped to just north of $1,500, while deliveries, which were about $6,000 a day, dropped to roughly half that. With online reviews being the most hilarious I've read since I started working retail and customer service decades ago, know-it-all owner was forced to give up on his policy, eventually announcing his retirement a few months later and selling to the assistant manager I mentioned earlier. It's something we still joke about years later on our occasional catching up sessions. Me, hey, remember that time know-it-all demanded that we call him after every transaction? Assistant manager. Yeah, I laughed in his face about it. He didn't like me much after. Am I the jerk for insisting my pregnant sister switch bedrooms with me? My sister and I, both mid-20s, I'm a few years older. We share a house together. It was our parents' house and we both inherited it after they passed. We have equal share in ownership of the house. The house has 4 bedrooms. One is the master room and has an ensuite and a walk-in wardrobe. The other 3 just have built-in robes. When we both moved back in after deciding that neither of us wanted to sell, we agreed that she could have the master suite, but the 2 largest of the other bedrooms would both be mine. One is an actual bedroom and the other is a gaming room for me. The last and smallest bedroom is a guest room. Her boyfriend's been living here for a while, and she recently told me that she's pregnant. I'm not particularly looking forward to sharing a house with a screaming baby, but it's her house too, and she has every right to be here and raise her kid. Obviously, the baby will need a bedroom, and I was expecting that to be the guest room. It's the smallest bedroom in the house, but it's still the same size as a standard bedroom. But my sister wouldn't go for that. She's insisting I move my stuff out of my game room so that can be the baby's room. I told her that I'm not moving my stuff into the guest room because that wasn't our agreement. But then she informed me that actually I won't be able to do that either, as we would still need a guest room, especially with the baby coming, as her boyfriend's family will want to visit. So I said, fine, you can have my game room if you move into my room and give me the master room. She started crying and said that as a mother, she's going to need her own space and she deserves the master bedroom. I asked what she expected me to do, and she said I should just suck it up and keep all my crap in my own room. We're at an impasse, and I can't get her to come to a real agreement with me. She keeps calling me a huge jerk and says that I should let her have both the master bedroom and my gaming room because she needs them more. Her boyfriend says I should just deal with it, that because I don't want kids anyway, I should just suck it up. My girlfriend, who also spends a lot of time here, is on my side and says my sister is being a spoiled, entitled little brat. Am I the jerk? Edit. She can't buy me out. She doesn't have the money. We each got some money along with the house, but she wanted a fancy Range Rover, so most of hers went to that, and she can't get a loan because she's only working part-time at the moment. I still have all of my money plus some of my own savings, so I will be having a discussion with her regarding buying her out. The house is located in a nice expensive area, so what she gets from me for her half will be enough for her to buy an average 3-bedroom house in a cheaper area. Really don't want to sell if I can help it, as the house has been in the family for a long time. Not the jerk about giving up your rooms, but I am very doubtful this living situation is going to last. She's doing a slow takeover and it will only get worse, especially if she has more kids. Have you ever discussed her buying out your share, or honestly just selling and getting your own home? Not the jerk. Do not under any circumstances give up your gaming room, or else they're going to try and move you out of that house. Tell her to take the guest room and make it an even 2 bedrooms for each. The boyfriend's family can sleep on the sofa or they can go to a hotel. You own half of the house, not him. Karen demands I pay her rent because she's pregnant and quit her job. I'm 18, female, and my brother, who's 21, and his girlfriend, who are 20, are currently living with my parents, who are 40 and 46. She moved in after my brother revealed that she was pregnant and that he wanted her to live with us in case something were to happen, since he doesn't have his own place and neither does she. She is not a good person. She's extremely manipulative and she's bipolar. I've had problems with her in the past because I've caught her wearing my clothes, using my skincare and makeup, and just overall invading my privacy, as well as my younger brother's, who's 17. I've brought this up to my parents and they took it with a grain of salt, so I began to dislike her more and more as she continued to cause problems for me and my brothers. Anyways, she's 4 weeks pregnant and she's already milking it. She'll whine to my brother about her pregnancy cravings, how much her stomach hurts, how tired she is, how she needs a bigger bed to sleep in. They sleep on a twin-sized bed in the living room, and a bunch of other BS. She also brought up quitting her job due to feeling sick all the time, and my parents opposed this since she wouldn't be able to pay rent. Fast forward a few days later, and she quits anyways, and she doesn't have rent money, and neither does my brother, since his payday wasn't for another week or so. So they come up to my room and ask for $200 to pay their rent. I tell them no, and she goes on this rant about how sick she feels and how much pain she's in because of the baby, and that she would have the money if she weren't forced to quit. I explode on her and tell her that I don't give a hoot that she's pregnant, a few weeks pregnant at that, and that she'll just be using it as an excuse to leech off my parents and my brother. We get into a screaming match, which results in her crying and my brother calling me a heartless jerk, and they run and tell my parents about how mean I was being to her. My parents are on my side, and they told her that I'm right about her being lazy and that they are not allowed to ask me or my younger brother for rent in the future. But they thought that I took it overboard by saying that I didn't care that she was pregnant and for calling her a leech. Her and my older brother are ignoring me now, and they said that if I don't apologize for what I said, then they are going to continue to not speak to me, and they're going to keep the baby away from me once she gives birth. I'm not sure if I should apologize. I want to be in the baby's life, but I simply do not feel sorry for anything I said. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. No need to apologize. She is a leech, and you don't have to care about her being pregnant. Poor baby, if there really is one. Oh no! A lazy mother is going to keep her newborn away from me. Whatever will I do? Not the jerk. And for your sake, I hope they keep the baby away from you. With two brothers and you being the sister, they will do almost anything to get free childcare from you. Lock down your stuff and your information. Protect yourself from identity theft because they will take loans in your name. Have a conversation with your brother, friend, or a parent in earshot about identity theft and how you would 100% prosecute to the fullest extent. These people are users, and in the words of my grandmother, people will feed you crap as long as you eat it. Am I the jerk for having a lights-out wedding, even though my in-laws-to-be aren't happy about it? I, 27 female, am the daughter of the most amazing parents that ever did amaze. No, they're not perfect, but they've literally done everything they could in their lives to make sure I was happy to the best of their ability. They are also both blind. Being raised by blind parents wasn't without its challenges, but we always found solutions or compromises. But the one thing that was often a point of contention, especially when I was a teenager, was clothing and fashion. My parents have their own way of being fashionable, and rather than appearance, it's fabric and feel. This has resulted in them having a very eclectic sense of fashion, but I honestly love it. I admit that I hated it as a teenager, as I had no say over my own wardrobe purchases, but I realized after I moved out that I really did prefer to feel comfortable in my clothes over how I looked in them. Took many stupid expensive clothing purchases to realize this, but I digress. Nothing is mismatched anymore, but I have a super cozy wardrobe. With the wedding planning in full swing, my fiancé asked me if I was going to be okay with the photos. He did not mean this maliciously. It just didn't occur to him that I was originally planning to buy them clothing to wear. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, wouldn't a fabric wedding be special? Essentially, the whole wedding will be in the dark. I was inspired by a restaurant I saw in a movie. I realized that I don't want to dress my parents. I want them to be comfortable and to enjoy our wedding the way they experience it. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I want to experience this special day as they would too. My fiancé, honest to God, does not care. In his mind, the moment I said yes, I became his wife. I love him. To avoid accidents, we're going to be using glow stick lighting, and everyone will be provided free bracelets and necklaces. They light up enough to not crash into each other, but not so much as to light up the room. We're also hiring event staff with night vision for this equipment too. When we announced, most of the family was supportive. My family goes without saying. Fiancé's family is iffy. His brother loves the idea and is going to come in a velvet suit, a la Austin Powers. Honestly, it's his parents that are really against it. We had a huge fight over it when they argued that it's not fair to punish the guests because my parents are blind. The reason I think I may be the jerk is because the part of his family that is siding with his parents are vowing to boycott if we don't have lights. My husband just thinks it's their loss and that his parents will attend, even if begrudgingly. But I know it would hurt his relationship with them, and I don't want to do that. It's not that this is a hill I'm willing to die on, but it's my wedding, and this would be really special to me. In quotations, because my husband has told me he'd marry me in the Walmart if that's what I wanted. He just wants to marry me. Am I the jerk? Edit. I feel like I keep seeing these points brought up, so I'd like to address them. 1. We've hired a wedding planner whose literal job is to make sure this event runs smoothly and safely. They are literally being paid to factor in any contingency to ensure the safest experience. 2. There will literally be staff wearing night vision goggles monitoring every table to ensure everyone's safety, and so that if anyone needs help or guidance, they will provide it. Be it for serving food, to escorting other guests. There were 200 invites sent out, and 121 have RSVP'd yes. Each table is set to seat 6, so at this time we're paying for 20 extra hands to cover the tables for 121 guests. This isn't counting our table or the exits. 3. I've heard a lot of people imply that glow bracelets and glow necklaces won't be enough. Having been to many nightclubs and raves in my teens and early 20s, I can promise you that 121 wearing these is enough to see with, and the staff will manage the rest concerning tripping hazards and directions. 4. A lot of "you're the jerks" are making very valid points, and I'm discussing them with my fiancé. I'm also making a list of strong points to go over with my planner tomorrow. But for those people whose only argument is that they wouldn't be comfortable not being able to see, that's literally the point. You're not supposed to see. If someone came in a giant furry Sully from Monsters, Inc. costume, I'd be thrilled when I ran into them. The wedding isn't going to be focused on visually enjoying the experience. It's about hearing, smelling, tasting, and feeling it. I know for a fact that enjoyment isn't dependent on sight. Okay, cool concept, sounds great on paper, but in reality, someone is going to get hurt. Someone is going to fall or miss a step, or run into someone else and they will fall. Glow sticks are not enough. You can't see people's feet with glow sticks. What if someone chokes on food and no one can see them? Choking people aren't loud and their airway is blocked. What about parents with kids? They will lose the kid in minutes. What about people who have allergies? They cannot see what they are eating. I think there are better ways to honor your parents. Maybe have a select time that the lights will go out, or a toast or something. You're the jerk. This is a bad idea. Edit. The point is to be uncomfortable. You are a jerk for that. You can have a wedding that honors your mom and dad without making other people uncomfortable. Really think about this. It will be dark, and there's a real chance of some sort of assault since no one will be able to see. It would take one person to make it a nightmare for everyone. Oh, look, I just got grabbed. Oh goodness, just think if one of the servers was a creep. I have night glasses and everyone else is blind. Heck, it would be so easy for someone to steal from the other guest. It's pitch black. Servers will not be able to know whose stuff belongs to who. Someone could start grabbing purses and leave. I'm not even going to mention people who have anxiety or fears of the dark, since I'm sure this would be a nightmare for them. Edit 2. I've really been thinking about this. Think of the people who get surprised easily. They will either flee, fight, or freeze. If someone startles and they are a fighter, then you're going to have someone panic and boom, now we have someone injured due to a punch or something. Anyone that panics and is loud, shots or whatnot, yeah, that will be fun. Or just think if there were an actual emergency. People already panic during those, but now you are adding that they are in the dark. Karen stole my car, so I called the cops on her. Last year, I moved in with my boyfriend and his dad. My boyfriend and I were in a long-distance relationship for a few years, and I moved across the country to be with him after I finished graduate school. Due to such a large distance, I opted to sell my car and buy a new one after arriving. When I did this, my boyfriend helped me out by loaning me some money to help pay the down payment, but I have since paid him back. Last week, my boyfriend's older sister, who lives in another state, came to visit and stayed at the house with us. This was my first time meeting her, and I thought she was very nice, but I didn't get to know her too well. 2 days ago, my boyfriend and I were out running errands together, and his sister called him to ask when he would be back so she could borrow his car to go hang out with her friends in a town about an hour away. He told her it would be a while, and she then asked if it was okay to borrow my car. My boyfriend asked me, and I told him I was not comfortable with that and to tell her no. My boyfriend did tell her no. I heard the entire conversation. Well, a few hours later, my boyfriend and I got home, and my car was gone. I was shocked, and my boyfriend was confused. When we went into the house, his dad informed us that he gave my boyfriend's sister the spare key to my car that was in the lockbox because she said she needed to go somewhere. My boyfriend told him that she asked to drive my car and that we had told her no, so he didn't understand why she was allowed to take it, and his dad said that since my boyfriend helped pay for the car, that it therefore was partly his, which meant his sister had the right to drive it as well. I was absolutely livid, and I couldn't believe that anyone would do something like this. My name is the only name on the title, insurance, etc., as I am the sole owner. My boyfriend told his dad to call her and tell her to bring my car back immediately, and she said that she would be home soon. After 2 hours, I called the police and reported my car stolen because I was worried that if it got damaged or something, then I would be forced to pay the repairs, even though it wasn't my fault. My boyfriend's dad and his sister were really upset about this, and they accused me of trying to get them arrested. They're now demanding that I apologize to them and tell the police it was all a misunderstanding. But I really don't want to, because I feel that they tried to take advantage of me. My boyfriend agrees with me, but even he said that he thinks calling the police to report the car as stolen may have been going too far. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It wasn't a misunderstanding. She straight up stole your car. If she had gotten arrested, she'd have no one to blame but herself. Also, considering what a jerk your boyfriend's dad is, you should probably look into moving out as soon as you can. Not the jerk. She asked to borrow your car and you said no. She took the car despite you saying no. She stole your car. You reported her for stealing your car because again, she did. Don't back down, or I predict this sort of thing will happen more in the future with your sister-in-law and father-in-law. You want this price? You got it. Years ago, I worked as an assistant manager for a retail store in art supplies. My store was in a very affluent area, and we got loads of bored housewives who would drop $500 because they wanted a hobby. So one year, the company offered a one-day only coupon for Black Friday. The store was swamped. Saturday was swamped. Sunday was swamped. I'm running a register and trying to get people through as rapidly as I can when she arrives. We'll call her Debbie. Debbie, throwing 3 bags full of merchandise on my counter. I want to return all of this stuff and rebuy it. Me. Okay, can I ask why? People sometimes did this because they had used the wrong payment method or something, but I needed to verify. Debbie. I bought all of this stuff on Friday at the store 1,500 miles away, and that tax rate is higher. So I want to return all of it and buy it here to pay lower taxes. Now hurry up. I've been driving all day and I'm tired. This is going to be a pain on a very busy day over what comes out to be about $2.50. I confirm with the other manager who agrees this is ridiculous, but we just need to do it. So I start a return, but the totals don't match up, so I have to call and talk to the on-call support rep. He tells me I can only refund my state's tax and not the other amount. The solution is to manually adjust the prices until the tax and totals match. As I'm doing this, Debbie is complaining about how she's tired from driving. I'm taking too long. Her dog, her feet, her back, whatever. But eventually, I get everything balanced and process her return. Okay, the return has been processed. It's about time. You'd be done already if you weren't so stupid. Now, I want to buy it all again. Cue Malicious Compliance Part 1. The thing about art supplies is they can be small and in multitudes, and that's what she'd purchased. Individual pencils, brushes, pastels, sheets of paper, etc. Sure thing, ma'am, but I want to be absolutely certain I ring everything up right, since I'm dumb. So, with a sweet smile, I take everything out of the bags and ring them up one by one. Of course, some stuff doesn't scan, so it has to be looked up. As I go along, she's getting more and more agitated. The insults get more and more frequent, and now everyone in the other lines are glaring at her. At last, everything is rung up and I give her the total. Part 2. Remember that coupon from the beginning of the story? The code has been pulled from the system, so her new total, with a reduced tax rate, is significantly higher than the old one. Debbie loses it and starts screeching. It's not even words at this point, just noise. Sorry, ma'am, but it looks like you used our exclusive coupon on Friday. Unfortunately, that coupon is no longer valid. Your new total will be this amount. She kept screaming, but eventually paid, snatched her items, and left. It was a good day to be retail. Am I the jerk for calling the cops on my neighbor after they took a package off my porch? I, 38 female, live alone in the house I grew up in. It was left to me by my mother after she passed away 10 years ago. About 4 years ago, a couple about my age moved in next door, and we've pretty much been at odds since day one. There have been numerous times and issues that we've disagreed on. I have 3 cats that I sometimes let out into my backyard. My neighbors have a dog that would jump the 5-foot chain link fence separating our yards to chase my cats. I told my neighbors that if I caught their dog doing it again, I would call the cops. They actually had the audacity to ask if I would be willing to split the cost of a taller privacy fence instead of, training your dog not to jump the fence. Obviously, I refused, as I wasn't the one causing the problem, and the fence is technically on their property anyway. They ended up putting in a taller fence. Then they asked me to split the cost of taking down an ash tree that was on their property. It had become infested with some sort of bugs that killed the tree, and dead limbs were falling on their driveway. They had the city come out, and the survey guy said the tree was actually about 10% on my property. I told them the tree was theirs, and if they want it down, they'll have to pay for it, because I don't have a problem with it. Needless to say, we're not friends. They've also thrown some loud, late-night parties that included bonfires and loud music that I had to call the cops for as well. I am currently out of town visiting family for a couple of weeks. I have a friend who comes over to my house every day to check on my cats and check for mail and packages. I have medication for my cats that are delivered regularly. I get a notification the other day that some packages were delivered, so I texted my friend to let them know. But before my friend could get there, I got a notification from my Ring doorbell. I pulled up the live feed and saw my neighbor on my patio. I asked him what he was doing, and he said a package of theirs got delivered to my house by mistake, so he was just grabbing it. I told him to leave and that my friend would bring over his package when she comes over. He said he's not waiting for that and tried to leave. I told him if he takes a package from my porch, I'm calling the cops. He shoved the package in front of the camera and said, "That's my name and my address. I'm taking my package." Then he walked away. So I called the police and told them that he stole a package from me and I have video proof. They said they would investigate. When my friend got there a little later, the police were talking to my neighbors. The police must have left while she was checking on my cats because when she went to leave, it was just my neighbors outside. The husband yelled at her to tell me that I'm a huge jerk and that I need to take the police off of speed dial and let them deal with more important issues instead of using them as my own personal problem-solving service. You're the jerk. I get the fence thing. You could have pitched in on the tree just to chill things out. Calling the police about the parties without talking to them about it first is a very jerk move. If it was his package and it had their name and address on it, calling the cops on them was also a jerk move. You are officially a bad neighbor now. You're the jerk. They sound like absolutely awful neighbors, and under any circumstances, I'd side with you in a second. But you called the cops and accused them of stealing their own package. They didn't steal from you. They fetched something that belonged to them off your porch. And while yes, I suppose they were trespassing, if you get medication delivered, then you know that sometimes packages can't wait, and perhaps this was a situation like that, and it doesn't sound like you cared to listen to anything they had to explain. If you want to be seen as the better person than your jerk neighbors, then you have to actually be the better person. Sign to continue lease. This starts when my now wife and I decided to move in together and rent a house. We were in our early 20s. It was our first time renting, and we had fairly low income, so our options were pretty limited. Luckily, we found a place that was in a less desirable area, but had recently had some basic renovations. We signed a lease and life went on. Our first 12 months went by with a rental inspection from the agent every 3 months or so. Never got any feedback, and being new to renting, figured everything was okay. We had a few items that needed repairing in that time, so I met the landlord and got his details for organizing repairs. He seemed like a decent bloke, probably early 40s, reasonably handy, and did some repairs himself. The first year went by, the lease came to an end, they increased the price, and we signed on for another 12 months. Then it happened. About 2 months later, the agent came to inspect along with the landlord's wife. The wife turned her nose up at absolutely everything and made a number of insulting comments about our furniture when she thought I couldn't hear. We got an inspection report after that, and it gave us a huge list of items to rectify and 2 weeks to do it, or they'd initiate proceedings to evict us. Naturally, after never hearing any feedback from any other inspections, we were shocked. The items were mostly minor nitpicks, with the worst things being to move our cats outdoors, clean the oven, and spray the weeds on the path in the backyard. We were fine copying it on the chin and doing what they asked, except for the cats. Initially, when signing the lease, it said no pets, but we requested and got acceptance for our indoor-only cats. It was noted on the lease, but not on the copy I had. I was kicking myself for not having it in writing and knew I had no chance if they wanted to push the point. So I called the landlord rather than talking through the agent. He explained that tenants in the other house they owned had been using it as a trap house, skirt, and the agents had never picked up on it. So when they found out, his wife insisted on going along to our inspection, hence why we got a bad report. I talked it out with him, and although he was very patronizing towards me, he agreed we could keep the cats inside as long as we kept everything clean, and the next reports went fine. So we did as they asked, and they increased the inspections from once every 3 months to once a month, which is the minimum period they're allowed. We had a list of things to fix after every inspection. It made our lives horrible. We felt like intruders in our own home. We grew to hate living there, and it put a strain on our relationship. Luckily, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it, my father passed around this time, so I ended up with inheritance money from his super fund and the sale of his house. My wife and I used the inheritance as a deposit to buy a house of our own, sorted out a loan agreement, and found a place that we liked. Now this is where I finally got my chance to repay them for making us feel like indentured servants that only existed to vacuum carpets and scrub walls in our home. By some miracle of luck, I negotiated the settlement date for our new house to be 1 week before our lease was due to end. This meant that we wouldn't have to break contract and be stuck footing the bill while they found new tenants. Better yet, they sent me a letter saying our lease was due to end and included a new lease agreement with a large jump in rent. The letter said we had to either sign the new lease and send it back to them by a date that was 2 weeks before end of lease or consider the contract ended. move out by the end of the lease term, and hand over the keys. It said nothing about telling them we didn't want to renew the lease, so I didn't. I didn't want them booking open inspections and intrude further on our lives to show the place to new tenants, and decided they didn't deserve extra notice. The days ticked by, a couple weeks went past, and my wife and I were busy getting ready to move. I didn't get contacted by the agent again until my phone rang 1 week after the new paperwork was due, literally the day before we were moving out. It was the agent, of course. They greeted me nicely and said it was just a reminder that we needed to sign the new lease and get it back to them. I told them, "Oh, we aren't signing it. We bought a house and we're moving out tomorrow." The other end of the line went dead silent for a good few seconds while my face got stuck in a grin. The agent quietly asked why we hadn't told them, and I said the paperwork only said to let them know if we were extending the lease, nothing about moving out, so I assumed they knew. She said goodbye pretty quickly, and the panic in her voice was glorious. She was done for, and she knew it. I wish I got to hear more of the fallout, but my wife and I moved out, cleaned the house over the remaining week, and I handed the keys over. They never booked any open inspections in that final week, so the house sat empty for a while, waiting for new tenants, and the landlords missed out on some rent payments. We also checked the listings and saw they advertised it at a lower price than what they were going to gouge us for. As a bonus, a couple days after the lease ended, the agent called me and said our contract stated that we had to have the carpet steam cleaned and they were going to take the cost from our bond. I told her we had had them steam cleaned, and she said we didn't. The carpet smelled like garbage. After me telling her again that we had, she demanded a copy of the receipt. I emailed it through and never heard from them again. I didn't mention that there was a cavity under the house and the couple bags of rubbish I chucked under there as we were moving out because the bins were full. I guess the floor wasn't airtight. Am I the jerk for not wanting to share a room with my little brother? When I, 19 female, left for college last year, my parents gave my room to my little brothers, who are 6 and 3. My sister, who's 14, has her own room. I came back from college for the summer, and I'm probably going to be taking a gap year as well. I was put back in my old room, and I'm sharing it with my 6-year-old brother. My 3-year-old brother is sharing with my sister. It's been horrible. I have no privacy at all. My brothers get up at 7 a.m., come into our room, flip the light on, and start playing and fighting at full volume. I can't tell them to leave because it's their room. My mom and sister also come in at all hours of the day without knocking to put laundry or toys away and leave the door wide open. I don't have a car, and my parents only have one right now, so I haven't gotten a summer job yet. I have nowhere else to go all day, so I have my AirPods in most of the day to spare my sanity and drown out the constant fighting and noise, which also upsets my mother. The 6-year-old is out of control as well. He bullies everyone and gets away with little to no consequences. I tell him to get out of my stuff, and he bops me and runs away. He picks the bathroom lock and bursts in laughing. A 6-year-old already knows how to pick the lock? It's going to be a really good criminal one day. Whenever I speak up about these things, I get told that I'm insulting my mom's parenting, that I'm ungrateful for having a place to stay, and that I can't make any demands because I don't pay rent. I've been kicked out for a night before. My mother insists that I must hate my brother and reads into almost everything I do or say as a direct attack against him. She says that I want to paint him as a little villain and myself as a victim. So, am I the jerk for not wanting to share a room with him? Edit. I'm taking a gap year because I was paying for college by myself and can't afford it anymore. College is not just a free escape from my situation, and I'm not acting rich or spoiled by taking a gap year. I literally cannot afford it. Edit 2. I'm not asking them to rearrange the rooms or force all 3 siblings in one room. I'm not sure where in my post people are reading that. I'm being told that I'm ungrateful for not being happy being woken up by screams at 7 a.m., having the bathroom lock picked, and getting bopped by the 6-year-old. That is what I have a problem with. The people calling you the jerk are wild, not the jerk. Why aren't the 2 boys sharing a room? It would probably be much better if you were sharing a room with your sister. Also, your brother picks the lock? That's unacceptable in my opinion. Maybe you could team up with your sister and demand to share with her if she's unhappy too. There's not really a lot you can do with unreasonable parents. If they were really supportive, they would be driving you to a job or helping you get a ride. I'm guessing you live in a place with no public transport. Is there anyone you can ask to give you rides? I'm rooting for you, girl. You did nothing wrong. Am I the jerk for asking my boyfriend why he continues to pay for a child that isn't his? causing him to stop? We've got me, female 28. We've got my boyfriend, male 24. We've got Marco, boyfriend's biological son who's 2 years old. Polo, boyfriend's ex's child, no relation to boyfriend. And baby mama, my boyfriend's ex, the mother of Marco and Polo. I, OP, and my boyfriend have been seeing each other for only about 3 weeks, an admittedly short amount of time. The issue arises, however, with Polo, or the mother's expectations involving this kid. Polo is baby mama's first son and belongs to a deadbeat who lives out of town and has never been in Polo's life. Boyfriend spent about 3 years in Polo's life as a male adult figure while in a relationship with baby mama. Since they've split, he only sees Polo if he happens to be with Marco. Last night, baby mama contacted boyfriend and just told him, "You're taking the boys tonight," and this upset him. He said he struggles to care for 2 kids on his own and can't afford it. Confused, I asked, "I thought only Marco was yours." He confirmed only Marco was his, but he feels responsible for Polo as he was involved in his life from a young age. We discussed Polo's father, and I expressed my distaste for fathers who don't step up for their own kids, saying something along the lines of, "Why does his dad get no responsibility? He should be feeling this obligation, not you." Boyfriend then told baby mama that he will take Marco absolutely no issue, but said he's no longer going to be held responsible for Polo. Baby mama then basically said, "Cool, you're never seeing your son again," then made threats to call local organizations and has been blasting him on Facebook, calling him a deadbeat dad. I'm a childless woman. I won't even begin to pretend that I understand how complicated her situation must be. However, I am childless because I choose to be, meaning I've never just been like, "Oops, I guess I'm pregnant," and have always found it fairly easy to just not get knocked up. So I have little sympathy for this next detail. She's currently pregnant with a 3rd kid from a 3rd baby daddy and has no idea who it is, and fully expects boyfriend to take care of the 3rd kid too. One conceived after they broke up by another man. It's clear to me that this woman will expect boyfriend to pay for and care for any kid she has now or in the future because he's a good man. To her, it has nothing to do with who was there for Polo or Marco. It's who will pay the child support. I feel like my comment was the final straw. I'm worried I should have kept my mouth shut, but I was genuinely just making light conversation. I never said, "You should do XYZ." I also really don't like that because he wouldn't take both of the kids, he wasn't permitted to see his son. Am I the jerk? Does everyone suck here? Should I have kept my comment to myself? Not the jerk. Are you prepared for this drama long term? If not, run. Now. It won't stop. Not the jerk. Your boyfriend could emotionally provide for Polo since he's been in his life, but financial obligation is to Marco. I would advise your boyfriend to get a custody agreement in place. Everyone sucks here. As a girlfriend of 3 weeks, it really wasn't your place to question how he chooses to structure his family. He'd been a father figure to that boy for 3 years. Withdrawing financial support and no longer seeing the boy who looked up to him as a dad so abruptly was a jerk move on your boyfriend's part. If he wanted to step back, there were ways to do that more gradually or less confusing to the poor kid. Obviously, the mom is the worst. 3 kids by 3 baby daddies and expects one to support them all is crazy. She doesn't seem like a responsible woman. Am I the jerk for having a party at my apartment while a neighbor was studying? 2 weeks ago, a college student that lives in the apartment next door went door to door to every single apartment on our floor and the floors below us and above us to warn everyone that she has her college exams coming up and she's studying, so we better not have any parties until the end of May. She was somewhat kind, and having been through the stress of exams, I was compassionate and agreed that I won't have any loud parties, but I told her that my birthday is on May 5th, and on Friday night I'd probably have a couple of friends over and have some low music. She got annoyed when I told her that and told me that I better be quiet then. I didn't like her attitude, considering the fact that I was trying to be empathetic, and also told her I'd not do anything crazy for a party besides low music and some friends over. On Thursday evening, after I came back from work, I saw 2 notes. One on the building entrance and one on the elevator which said, "I'm the college student from floor 7. Please refrain from any kind of social gatherings that might disturb my studying during this stressful time." I didn't give much thought to it. I wasn't planning on a party, as I said. On Friday night, I had my 3 closest friends come over. We didn't party, we just chilled at my apartment and had some low music which barely could be heard in my own bedroom, let alone next door apartments. On Saturday morning, there was a note on the elevator once again, straight up naming me and saying, "OP from the 7th floor broke the agreement and had a social gathering on Friday night, completely disrespecting the stressful time I'm going through. She said she'd be discreet, but this is not enough. I could still hear some laughs and discussions because I had my windows and my balcony door open and disrupted my peace and focus. Let this be a lesson. The next time someone decides to disrespect stressful times like this, you will be called out." Certain neighbors defended me and said that the college girl was being unreasonable with her demands, but other neighbors believe I was a jerk and that I should go to a restaurant or a bar instead of having a gathering at my house. Not the jerk. It's completely unreasonable for her to ban other people from having pretty quiet social gatherings for 6 weeks. She wasn't even prepared to close her windows. She sounds unhinged, to be honest. Parents decided to cancel my 14th birthday party to accommodate my spoiled younger brother. I'm 20, male, and this happened when I was 14. I have a brother that's about 6 years younger than me, and he was extra coddled by my parents for having been diagnosed with high-functioning autism when he was 4. But other than that, he seems very normal, just unbelievably spoiled. And he used that to get his way a lot. And by a lot, I mean nearly all the time. Anything I had, he also had to have. So that meant we had doubles of almost everything that weren't shared items. And anything he had that I didn't, he'd rub in my face any way he could. When I was 11, I begged my parents for a 3DS for my 12th birthday. I got one, but then was told to lend it to my brother whenever he wanted it, or else I'd have it taken away, which was a lot. When my aunt found out after seeing my parents forcibly take my 3DS out of my hands to give to my brother on one of her visits, she let loose on them for such blatant favoritism. They returned my 3DS immediately, then blamed me for the situation after my aunt left. But they didn't make me give it to my brother again. Instead, my parents went out a few days later and bought another 3DS as a surprise gift for my brother. On several of mine and other people's birthdays, my brother made a huge fuss because the party wasn't all about him, even going so far as to outright state that he was upset because he wasn't getting any gifts or getting to blow out the candles on the cake. My parents learned the hard way that they couldn't enable my brother the way they'd have liked at those parties, and were actually kicked out of a few for trying. And because of that, other kids at his school stopped inviting him to birthday parties altogether. For me, my birthdays were some of the only days I had that I got to have about me, because otherwise my parents forced my life to revolve around my little brother. And the year prior to when this story took place, my parents ended up paying more attention to him the entire time of my 13th birthday, and even asked me if I'd let my brother blow out my candles for me because he was upset and pouting. I refused that because I wanted to blow out my own candles. They called me a spoiled brat at first, till my aunt intervened and chastised them on their favoritism yet again, and stated how much she had noticed how my brother gets nearly everything between the two of us. My parents got no support from anyone else there other than my brother, who was still crying because he wasn't getting to blow out the candles. And because he didn't get his way, he tried to outright spit on my cake out of spite. But my awesome aunt thankfully blocked him before he got the chance, then scolded him till he ran to my mom in tears. My parents took a lot of heat from the other adults there, and then promised to never ask me to let my brother blow out my candles again. But they pretty much just went through the motions for the rest of the party. My aunt pretty much took over coordinating everything from that point. The following year, a couple of weeks before my birthday, my parents set me down and told me they were still going to get me some gifts and a small cake, but my birthday party was effectively canceled to avoid my brother having another meltdown. I told them I couldn't believe they were doing this to me, and then they just seemed to shrug it off without a care. So at school over the next week, I told my friends, my teachers, and even my school counselor. All of them were appalled by my parents' lack of consideration or empathy. The vice principal even found out and consoled me. And all of this got back to my parents through social media. My parents ended up grounding and gaslighting me for telling so many people. But that didn't stop me from still telling everyone at school that I was grounded for just being upset my birthday was canceled for no good reason. I guess that made it a lot worse, because several of my parents' own friends, along with parents to other kids in my school, called them up or sent them Facebook messages, basically saying, "What's wrong with you?" And suddenly, I was ungrounded. I didn't get an apology either. My dad just walked into my room with his arms crossed, told me my grounding was over early, and then walked out. That was it. I thought my party was still canceled because nobody said anything about it, and my brother thought it was hilarious and rubbed it in my face that I wasn't going to get to celebrate. But by the end of the 2 weeks, my parents held a surprise party for me at my favorite restaurant, and then started claiming that was their intent all along. I knew it wasn't. From what I'd seen, everyone was incredibly unhappy with them for what they did, and it showed with any interactions family members had with my parents. So they ended up doing the surprise party to try and save what little of their reputations they had left. But I'm pretty sure they had to pay through the nose that day just to accommodate me. I got dinner with all my friends at my favorite restaurant that had a small arcade, and even got the PS4 game I'd been wanting at the time. I could tell it was all pretty much planned and bought last minute because my dad had a look about him that my aunt comically described as looking like a moth had flown out of his wallet. My brother, of course, made a huge fuss that I got that surprise party. But with so many of my friends and their parents there, my mom and dad finally put their feet down on my brother to stop his tantrum when he wanted to push my cake off the table. My brother ended up getting a timeout for the first time since he was a toddler, and my mom had to stay with him to make sure he didn't do anything crazy. And he did try several times to run to the cake or stack of presents. Who knows what he could have done were it not for the fact at least one adult was always on guard. Even my dad stood guard to keep him away. My mom ended up having to remove my brother and herself from the party entirely and took my little brother to a McDonald's nearby so he could have fun in their play area. And I heard later she spent at least an hour trying to get him to come out of the play place tube structure. And he only did so because he had to use the bathroom, then tried to run back in again. My parents never tried to cancel my birthday again while I still lived with them, though they never again tried as hard or spent as much. For the remaining 4 years I was under their roof, my birthday parties consisted of a local pizza parlor, a cake without even my name written on it, and never again anything as expensive as a new gaming system. I didn't mean to sound spoiled, but I was a bit disappointed I never got a cake with my name on it again. My aunt called my parents out on that each year, and each year they claimed they forgot to get the cake decorated. I'm pretty sure that the reason my name was never written on another cake was because my brother always refused to eat pieces of cake that had writing of someone else's name on it at any party. And they couldn't put his name on any of my cakes, or it would have looked very bad for them. But the fact that I still got a day that was just about me at all and not my brother was still fantastic in my book, especially because just about everything else revolved around him. During each of my remaining birthday parties while still living at home, my brother made a fuss, and my mom took him somewhere else to calm him down. I was still required to share my PS4 with my brother, but it was still mine, and I took it with me when I moved out at 18. Little bro did not like that and had a huge fit until my parents went out and bought another PS4 for him. When I moved out, they finally had to deal with how they had raised my brother so spoiled because I wasn't there to help them with him anymore. On his recent 14th birthday, he went mental on our parents for not getting him a PS5. He's now currently grounded for I don't know how long after causing hundreds, or maybe even thousands, in collateral damage during his rampage. He picked up a chair and just started destroying anything that was in front of him with it. And my parents just looked mentally checked out when I saw them last. My aunt has also told me that they confided in her that they wish they could send my brother to military or boarding school in the future because they can't handle the monster they created anymore. But there's no way they can afford that. I'd be lying if I said I didn't find it ironically funny. It took that many people calling them out before they did something? The relatives chastising them wasn't enough? It had to take a whole school and a small community? Dang. I fear the one day that your brother will be in jail. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.